Part 70. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 692. Two sisters were born from one mother, and they had a very good relationship. Lily Gann also sympathized with her sister for leaving her daughter helpless. Although she was only 13 years old, when she heard her sister pleading, in order to make her sister feel at ease when she left, she nowadays, although Gann's father's status is rising steadily, it is not impossible for her to enter the palace as a concubine in the future based on her status and appearance. However, after hearing her sister's plea, Gann Lily still endured the humiliation and married into the palace in the name of her stepmother. UN family. The status of the stepmother and the first wife is very different. Even during the holidays, according to the Zhou rules, the stepmother can only perform the concubine ceremony in front of the first wife. For the sake of her sister, Lily Gann gritted her teeth and endured all this shame. After she got married, she regarded Yuan Xiaozu as if she were already a child, and treated her as if she were her own child. She was even deeply afraid that Yuan Xiaozu would be uneasy if she gave birth to an heir. Therefore, during the more than 3 years after marrying into the Yuan family, she suffered from menstrual cramps. During the consummation of their marriage, she had been taking contraceptive pills. When Yuan Xiaozu was 4 years old, I wonder if the pills to prevent her pregnancy had lost their effect, and she unexpectedly became pregnant. The Yuan family has not had an heir for many years, and this child came just in time. Although Lily Gann had hesitated, the pressure from her mother-in-law and the expectation of having a husband, plus she herself was not young now, had no children in her husband's family. It was untenable, so he gritted his teeth and kept the child. Yuan Xiaozu was angry with her from then on, and became very divided with her after that. Gann Lily was pregnant in 10 months and gave birth to a son. The Yuan family had an heir, and everyone was happy. But Gann Lily thought about Yuan Xiaozu and felt very sorry for her, so she loved her even more. She disciplined her son Gan Bei strictly and taught him to take care of and love his sister since he was a child. Under her guidance, the sibling relationship between Yuan Shizi and Yuan Xiaozu was very deep, but Gan Bei put most of her maternal love on Yuan Xiaozu. As her son grew up, she gradually neglected his growth. Every day she cared about Yuan Xiaozu's food, clothing, housing, and transportation, fearing that she would not take good care of her. She inevitably cared less about her son because she felt sorry for Yuan Xiaozu. Gan Bei herself suffered a lot from marrying too early and almost ruined her body. Therefore, she had her own arrangements for Yuan Xiaozu. She helped her negotiate the marriage when she was 16 years old. The 9th son of the Shen family, a third-rank general who grew up as a childhood sweetheart. This Shenju is outstanding in martial arts and has outstanding appearance. He is also about the same age as Yuan Xiaozu, but his personality is undecided and he often gets into trouble. Gan Bei was deeply afraid that his daughter would be angry with him after marrying him, so she suppressed the marriage between the two families. It was not until Yuan Xiaozu was 15 years old that the two parties officially settled. When he was busy with Yuan Xiaozu's marriage, Prince Yuan was dissatisfied with his mother's favoritism, and because the boy was now at the rebellious age of 10, he began to contradict Lily Gann. And he also started causing trouble outside. The marriage of Yuan Xiaozu and Shen Chenyi is scheduled for October next year. I don't know if the Yuan family is destined to suffer a disaster. Although there are many men in the Yuan family, due to the family background, very few of them die alive. They are destined to be in their prime. Wei Hao didn't even wait for his daughter's marriage, and ended up dying in battle. For this reason, Yuan Xiaozu had to observe mourning for 3 years, and the marriage was postponed until Yuan Xiaozu's 18th birthday, which was delayed by both parties. The Shen family became dissatisfied several times because of this. Shen Chenyi's mother was sarcastic several times when she saw Gan Lily. Yuan Xiaozu loved Shen Chenyi to the core, but Gan Lily had a violent temper, but she endured it every time because of this reason. The in-laws between the two families were not formed. On the contrary, when some twists and turns occurred because the marriage was delayed for too long, something happened at this time. Dingwei is waiting for death. Naturally, his only legitimate son Yuan Shiza was asked by Ganbei to make him the marquis at the young age of 14. Although this boy looked fine when he was young, he was pampered by his elders when he was young. Since his son died, looking at the only seedling left by her son, the old lady of Dingguihao doted on her grandson even more. The younger prince hated Gan Lili for favoring Yuan Ziozu, so he became more rebellious as he got older and deliberately did many ridiculous things. The son wants to arouse his mother's destiny. Among the dandy boys in the Zhou dynasty who teased chickens and dogs every day, there must be one such young Dingguihao. The troubles he causes are usually not big, and he only dares to cause trouble if his family can suppress him. Therefore, although many people don't like his flamboyant personality, many people are unwilling to argue with him because of his status. Several generations of men from the Yuan family of Dingguihao died for the emperor of the Zhou dynasty. The emperor of Zhou treated the Yuan family very favorably. If someone complained, they would almost never be able to bear the consequences. In this way, the new Dingguihao, it was inevitable that he would feel even more elated. 3 years after his father's death, less than 2 months before his sister Yuan Ziozu got married, he got into a fight with others over a singing girl when he went out to play. In order to bet, he was about to force the singer to go back home and sing a little song for him, and he was not allowed to leave until she finished singing. The singer was so angry that she refused to obey and was willing to die to keep her integrity. When a passerby saw it, the two sides got into an argument, and the other party missed her. Lily's only son was beaten to death. In the past 10 years, Ganbei had countless opportunities to conceive and give birth to children, and to expand the branches and leaves of the Yuan family. However, she thought about the scene when Yuan Ziozu was estranged from her when she gave birth to her son, and her heart ached every time she thought about it. Because of this, her mother-in-law was very unforgiving of her. Her life in Dingguihao was very difficult. Now that her only son died, Dingguihao was effectively cut off. According to inheritance, when the old lady knew about this, she fainted on the spot. After knowing the bad news, Lily Gan could not recover for a long time. The person who killed Ganbei's only son was none other than Yuan Ziozu's new uncle of the Shen family, Shen Chenyi, who was about to marry. The news spread back to the Yuan family. No matter how much Ganbei felt sorry for Yuan Ziozu, she couldn't bear it. She and her mother-in-law went in wearing court clothes. The palace begged the emperor and the queen to make the decision, but instead of getting married, the two parties became enemies. The Shen family was shocked when they found out that Shen Chenyi had caused such a big disaster. Shen Chenyi had always been bold enough to cause trouble, but no matter how bad his son was, he gave birth to his own son. How could a mother bear to see her son die? Shen Chenyi had no fame and honor. This time, the person he killed was Mr. Ho, who was officially listed in the imperial court. According to the laws of the Zhou dynasty, this crime should be executed. In order to save her son's life, Shen's mother let her son leave overnight. The emperor punished her and Shen Chenyi had already fled. As a result, the Shen family angered the emperor of Zhou and was imprisoned. Yuan Ziozu was horrified when she knew what had happened. She knew that her father and uncle died for Dazhu. Now the Shen family only had a single brother left, but now he was beaten to death by his fiancée Shen Chenyi. The emperor wanted to give him if the Yuan family confessed, her fiancé would definitely be blamed. How could she just watch the Shen family die? If a member of the Shen family really died because of the Yuan family, Shen Chenyi would definitely not forgive her in the future. And if the emperor did not want to dishearten the hero in the future, the Shen family would be in bad luck. The only turning point for the matter was with Lily Gan. Only people from the Yuan family took the initiative to ask for an order to let go of the Shen family. Maybe the emperor would spare the Shen family for the sake of the Yuan family. Lily Gan had always loved her to the core and would definitely agree to her request. Although her younger brother had also been raped in the past. Lily Gan taught her to love her and respect her, but after all, people are dead, and they cannot be resurrected, so what if they take revenge? She begged Gan Lily to let go of Shen Chenyi and the Shen family. When Gan Lily began to hear her request, she was extremely shocked. She couldn't believe that this was the daughter she had loved for many years and regarded as a child. She had to bear the burden for Yuan Ziozu. She got the reputation of marrying her brother-in-law and making her sister mad. Everyone outside said that she would rather become a stepmother. She only had a son for Yuan Ziozu. Now that her son was beaten to death, Yuan Ziozu asked her to plead with her enemy. At first, Gan Bei refused Yuan Ziozu's request, but Yuan Ziozu forced her to die. After all, she was the daughter she had raised since childhood. In addition to being kind to Yuan Ziozu, the De Gan family had almost always been Gan since Yuan Ziozu was born. Lily raised her with one hand, but her son died. How could she bear to watch her daughter die too? Therefore, for the sake of her daughter, Gan Bei endured the resentment in her heart and went to the palace to plead for mercy. The Shen family was released, but the feud between the two families was forged. When Shen Chenyi was on the run, he met the little singer from back then. The two had a secret relationship. After hearing that the situation calmed down, the two returned home. Things turned out like this: Yuan Ziozu was originally not suitable to remarry to the Shen family, but she had a deep love for Shen Chenyi, and she refused to listen no matter how much Gan Lily tried to persuade her. In the end, Gan Lily had no choice but to let her go. Because she was the daughter-in-law that she had begged to marry, and because of her younger brother, the Shen family almost went to jail, so the Shen family treated Yuan Ziozu with extreme disrespect, but she regarded the little singer as her sister and served her everywhere. Mother-in-law, even when her mother-in-law bullied her and drove her back to her parents' home, her body had been damaged by the Shen family. She had a miscarriage at that time and almost lost most of her life. Gan Bei endured the pain in her heart. Fury healed her and settled the score with the Shen family, but in the end she was blamed by Yuan Ziozu. After Yuan Ziozu recovered from her illness, she always wanted to return to the Shen family, but the Shen family did not receive her. Shen Chenyi's mother contracted an infectious disease, and Yuan Ziozu secretly went to wait on her. She herself was weak and was easily infected. Gan Lily, unknown to her, she was also infected while taking care of her. The Yuan family soon contracted the disease and were eventually forced out of the capital. However, Yuan Ziozu recovered from the illness under Gan Bei's careful care. After she recovered, ignoring Gan Bei, she went to take care of her mother-in-law first. Shen's mother was moved by this and looked at her daughter-in-law differently. She no longer bullied her as before. The Yuan family soon perished due to the disease. Yuan Ziozu and Shen the family lived happily together. She shed tears for the Yuan family for 2 days. The Holy Spirit thanked the Yuan family for their contributions and granted her the title of Princess Yuan Ziozu. People thought of her earth-shattering relationship between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law and thought of Yuan. Everyone admired Ziozu's magnanimous feelings. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 693. When Lily finished receiving this plot, most of her face turned dark. She rubbed her forehead. She had just received a large amount of plots and memories, and now her head was still aching. The original owner was very desolate before she died. Her mother-in-law, after resenting her for not staying with the Yuan family, he also hated her for causing the Yuan family to die. Gan Bei was unwilling to die amidst all the resentment and curses of the Yuan family. Before her death, Yuan Ziozu was serving Shen's mother and did not come back at all. One look at her, she personally raised her daughter who was as young as a child, and finally gave the Yuan family such a heavy blow, almost ruining her life, she was not willing to accept it. And because the two sisters Ganbei married into the Yuan family, the De Gan family was unable to give birth to a son. After Ganbei married into the Yuan family, the Yuan family had no descendants. No one would care about whose hands the Yuan family's son died. In this world, people only blame women for being too tough. What happened to the two sisters made it impossible for the Gan family's daughter to get married. Lily Gan didn't expect that her behavior would also affect her mother's family. She was really unwilling to do so. She regretted that she had done something wrong to her family. Yuan Ziozu worked so hard that Yuan Ziozu never looked at her before she died. She regretted that she was blind and raised such a heartless daughter. She couldn't even avenge her son. Her life was ruined for Yuan Ziozu, and she wanted to start over. She wanted to go back to when she was young. At that time, Ganbei had many ideals, but in the end, she still lost to reality because of Yuan Ziozu. She wanted to have her own life, and didn't want to be surrounded by Yuan Ziozu all her life. Shobid's turn. Alas! Lily sighed. Gan Lily's wish was destined to not come true. She wanted to start her life over again. She didn't want to be known as seducing her brother-in-law and pissing off her sister to death. She also didn't want her whole life to revolve around such a cruel daughter as Yuan Ziozu. Unfortunately, she entered the mission too late. Not only did Ganbei marry into the Yuan family, but her only son also Shen Chenyi was beaten to death yesterday. At this moment, Shen Chenyi may have escaped from the city. Now the body of the only son is lying in the main hall of the palace. Ganbei and her mother-in-law were preparing to enter the palace tonight to ask for favors from the nobles in the palace and to accuse the Shen family. But when Yuan Ziozu heard that Ganbei was preparing to deal with when the Shen family was at home, they hurriedly came out and begged Gan Lily to spare Shen Chenyi's life. At this time, she was afraid that the quarrel between the two families would be so fierce that it would cause trouble in her marriage to Shen Chenyi, so she begged hard, but Lily Gan didn't listen to her this time, so she was locked up in the end. When she got up, Yuan Ziozu complained about her for a long time. Finally, under pressure to die, Ganbei had to fight for her life. Enter the palace to plead with the queen. Precisely because of Ganbei's repeated behavior, not only did she make the royal family unhappy, but her mother-in-law was also very puzzled by it. She lived in the Shen family very hard for several years after that. Without the support of a man or son, the Shen family was left alone. And finally when something went wrong, all the benefits were obtained by Yuan Ziozu. Hearing Lily's sigh in the room, the ladies guarding outside couldn't help but glance at each other and shook their heads involuntarily. Yesterday, as soon as Mr. Ho was carried back, he had already passed away. When Ganbei saw her son's body, she collapsed. In the past, she always felt that Yuan Ziozu was going to get married in the future, so she could keep him. She doesn't have much time with her, and her son will stay with her for a lifetime. She wants to be worthy of her sister who entrusted her to take care of her daughter before she died. As long as Yuan Ziozu is married off, she was able to spend a lot of time with her son, so even though her son complained about her favoritism and spent most of her time taking care of her sister, Lily Gan felt a little guilty. But it never changed. Unexpectedly, his son was so unlucky that he had already gone west before Yuan Ziozu could get married. The most important. After Ganbei sent someone to investigate, when someone came to report today and said that the murderer who killed her son was Shen Chenyi, her whole body collapsed. Coupled with Yuan Ziozu's plea, you can imagine how she felt in her heart. No. Everyone in the family has seen what Ganbei has done for Yuan Ziozu over the years. Not to mention that Ganbei is still a stepmother, even the biological mother may not be able to do this. How much she loves Yuan Ziozu is in everyone's heart. They all knew that when the servants heard Lily sighing and thought of her current position, they thought she was in trouble and sad, and they couldn't help but sympathize with her. Madam, "Can I fetch a basin of water and twist a handkerchief to clean your face?" The young Marquis died early due to an accident. Although he was still young, he was a serious official in the imperial court. "I'm afraid he will not come here when the morning hall is set up today. There would be a lot of people worshipping, and it was shameless for Lily to be in the house all the time. Even if she was sad, she still had to come out to receive her at this moment." Lily responded, but she didn't cry, but the original owner had already cried so much that her eyes were red and swollen. "After my son died last night, I shed tears all night long. Thinking of the things I did wrong to my son in the past, but now there is no chance to make things right. Every time I feel sad, my heart aches." The ladies and maids outside were relieved when they heard Lily's answer. When everyone came in with basins and handkerchiefs to help Lily stand up, a picture of a woman in her early 30s appeared in the mirror, but she looked extremely haggard, showing a somewhat old face. Lily Gan was extremely beautiful when she was young. The daughter of the Gan family had many people asking for her hand in marriage. Especially after her eldest sister married Marquis Dingwei, Lily Gan's status increased even more. Unfortunately, she did not choose many outstanding men in the end. In the end, she married into the Haofu and became an inferior stepmother. Over the years, she was almost drowned in rumors and rumors. Because she had been taking the medicine to avoid children for many years, she failed to make a living in the Yuan family. Her mother-in-law was very puzzled by this. Gan Bei's life is even more difficult. Not only does she have to endure her son's resentment and her mother-in-law's displeasure and resentment, but she also has to consider Yuan Ziozu's thoughts. The days are very tiring, and it's strange that people can look energetic. "Has the morning hall for the Marquis been set up?" Lily looked at the figure in the mirror and asked expressionlessly. Her cold eyes were revealed in the mirror, which made people feel a little frightened. Her eyes met with hers in the mirror, and they were so frightened that they lowered their heads. "It's just that, madam, this matter of entering the palace. Of course we have to go in. A little scoundrel like the Shen family dares to beat my son to death. If he doesn't pay for his life, how can there be such justice in the world?" Lily stretched out her hand to straighten her hair, her face expressionless. After saying this, the old woman's body trembled. She endured it again and again, but finally she couldn't hold it back and whispered, "That old lady. Sure enough, this girl is a bad girl. Anyone who stays here will become a grudge." The corners of Lily's mouth raised slightly, and the indescribable coldness in her eyebrows was overwhelming. In the past, even if Lily Gan had some temper, she could not resist it for many years. Her unsatisfactory life had long since dulled her character, but she didn't have this kind of aura in her body. When the old woman saw Lily's smile, she felt more and more chilled all over her body. She just felt that it was a good thing that Lily didn't smile. This smile was so penetrating that she lowered her head. Hanging her head, not daring to speak anymore, Lily simply pulled up her hair. Now she was a widow and had lost her son. Originally, her clothes should have been mainly blue and black, but today Lily was going to the palace to complain. Naturally, what she put on was her imperial court dress, which matched her hairstyle. Although she only wore a white silk flower, it was refreshing, but there was an aura that could not be ignored. It was too late to enter the mission this time. Lily Gan's wish to live her own life was destined to be impossible to realize. Lily was ready to avenge her son for her. She only hoped that Lily Gan could be satisfied. A morning hall had been set up outside the lobby. When I got up, many people came to pay homage. The old lady of Dingwei Haofu was already sitting in the middle of the hall wearing court clothes. She lost her son first and then her grandson. This old lady obviously couldn't bear it. She was now in her 50s, and her hair was all white. At this time, she was gathered up and combed into a bun, and she was dressed meticulously. Many people who came to offer incense looked at her with some sympathy, but also some. She looked gloating, but she remained calm. In the plot, the old lady was not kind to Gan Lily, but apart from her displeasure, she did not use any means of abuse to frustrate her. Now when Lily saw the old lady sitting in the hall, she stepped forward. A gift. You have figured it out. When old Madame Lu saw that Lily had already put on her court clothes, a sneer appeared on her expressionless face. I thought you were being coaxed by that little hoof, then 3 souls will be lost and 7 souls will be lost. Mrs. Lu was very unhappy with this daughter-in-law. Although Yuan Ziozu was her granddaughter, even though the old lady was happy that Gan Bei could treat her as if she were already married when she married into the Yuan family, she went too far. Even if the stepmother cannot treat the children of her legitimate wife favorably, she is not like Gan Bei who uses other people's daughters as treasures and her own sons as fodder. What's more, for Yuan Ziozu, she became pregnant after giving birth to a grandson. At first, Mrs. Lu thought there was something wrong with her belly. Later, after she asked a doctor to prescribe medicine for her and check her pulse, and found out that she had been secretly taking Bazai decoction and was in bad health, she became cold-hearted towards her. Originally, the Yuan family had many heirs, but after marrying 2 sisters from the Gan family, only a single seedling was left. The Lu family originally wanted to keep her grandson growing up, but she would not let him marry a woman like Gan Lily again in the future. Originally, she longed for her grandson to help the Yuan family in the future, but she didn't expect that her grandson would have died before he grew up. The Lu family was not without resentment towards Gan Lily. Today, they found out that the murderer of her grandson was, when she was Julang of the Shen family. Mrs. Lu heard about Yuan Ziozu and went to Gan Lily's courtyard. At that time, she thought that with Gan Lily's love for Yuan Ziozu, she might be able to let Yuan Ziozu go after her son died, but she didn't expect at this moment, Lily actually came over wearing court clothes. While Lu was a little surprised, she couldn't help but sneered. I only pity my Pingan son, life is really hard. To be continued. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 694. What did you say, mother? It's only natural to kill people to pay for their lives and debts to pay back money. Lily knew that Mrs. Lu was angry. At this moment, Mrs. Lu started to ridicule her. It was just because Mrs. Lu loved her grandson so much. The two of them had some kind of connection. To a certain extent, the goals were the same, so Lily naturally wouldn't get angry with her. She replied meekly, and Mrs. Lu snorted coldly, showing that she didn't believe her attitude. She closed her eyes and stopped talking. The people around who came to express their condolences were silent as they watched the conversation between the two mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. The body of the young master in the coffin in the lobby had cooled down. Lily looked at the childish face that was so pale that there was no trace of blood, and her body couldn't help but feel the flow of blood. Feeling unwilling and resentful, she reached out and touched the side of the coffin. In the plot of Gan Bei, her whole life revolved around Yuan Ziozu. She always thought that she would make up for her son in the second half of her life, but she didn't expect that before she could make up for it, her son had already passed away. Leave her. Huh. Mrs. Lu couldn't help but snorted coldly when she saw the sad look on Lily's face. What's the use of crying now? What were you doing in the first place? There was fire in her heart, but she didn't want to quarrel with Lily in public at this moment. People saw Ding Gui Haofu's joke at this juncture. When Lily heard Lu snort, she paused and stood up straight. Reached out and touched his son's cold face, and then his expression dimmed. Bring those useless, cowardly slaves who can't protect the Lord to us. Hearing Lily's words, the people who came over with gift orders were stunned for a moment, and Mrs. Lu also frowned. I'll punish this servant, let's talk about it after today. She also hated those useless things that couldn't protect her. grandson, but the Lu family has different priorities. As the saying goes, a family scandal cannot be publicized. Punishing a servant in front of everyone will inevitably make people laugh. Mom, my daughter-in-law is not punishing them now, but they saw what happened that day. Whoever harmed my son can get justice for our UN family in front of everyone. The UN family has been loyal to the country for generations. My husband Ma Ji was buried in the body. Now my son should not end up being beaten to death. Who is the murderer? In front of everyone, I vow to announce the truth to the world. Shen Chenyi beat the young Ho Ye to death. In the plot, Gen, although Lily went to the palace with her mother-in-law to file a complaint against the Shen family, due to Yuan Ziozu's pleading, people in the Zhou dynasty only knew that the entire Shen family was imprisoned for no reason. Many people did not know the inside story. It was not until later that all the Yuan family members were infected with the plague and perished. Yuan Ziozu received all the benefits of the Yuan family. At that time, the world only knew about the earth-shattering love between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law between Yuan Ziozu and Shen's mother, but few people knew the real reason for the demise of the Yuan family. When Mrs. Lu heard Lily's words, she glanced at her in surprise but said nothing. Obviously her attitude was either denial or acquiescence. Behi ordered people to go and summon the few servants who were under guard. However, the old woman who took the order came in with a strange expression about half a quarter of an hour later. Seeing Lily standing in front of the morning hall, she whispered something into her ear. "Madam, those slaves who were under guard were taken away by the eldest lady. These people were deeply afraid that if Mr. Ho died, they would also suffer misfortune. Therefore, in order to survive, they regarded Yuan Ziozu as a savior. Later, they did escape a life because of Yuan Ziozu's plea." At this time, the mother-in-law came in to reply. They knew how favored Yuan Ziozu was in the past, and they were afraid of offending Yuan Ziozu, and Lily spared them. Therefore, we know that Yuan Ziozu hid the person. They didn't dare to break into Yuan Ziozu's boudoir, so they came back empty-handed to report the news. When Lily heard this, she took a deep breath. The eldest lady is not young anymore. What does it mean to hide my husband in the courtyard anymore? The servants in her courtyard can't let her do anything nonsense. Beat the people around her 10 times, and kill those few slaves, and all his family members have been arrested. I want to see many of those people appear within a quarter of an hour. If half of them are missing, I will ask you for questioning." When the woman heard Lily get angry, she hurriedly responded. People are speculating whether Lily was stimulated by the pain of losing her son this time, and even her beloved Yuan Ziozu lost face. A quarter of an hour later, when a large group of young men and housekeepers were tied up, Lily's legs softened when they saw her. In front of everyone, Lily asked them what happened to the little Ho Ye. When it was said that the young Howie rewarded the singer with 5 taels of silver and allowed her to sing in the house but was refused, and some so-called righteous men beat the young Howie to death in order to stand up for the singer, everyone couldn't help but sigh. In Lu's eyes it also showed a bit of water. "Then who is the person who beat my son to death?" Lily asked calmly. The person who had been speaking just now hesitated a little and hesitated to speak. "I promise you a cup of tea. If you still can't say it, you will all be sent to the Yamen to be punished as the unruly slaves who tried to murder the master." Lily looked at the scene and raised her brows. Everyone heard that she was willing to give you a cup of tea. While they were drinking tea, they all looked at each other with a look of struggle on their faces. Before these people had time to think of a countermeasure, Lily reached out to pick up the tea poured on the table and dropped it on the ground. With a crisp sound of clang, the teacup fell to the ground and blossomed. The hot tea splashed everywhere, and a few drops flew to the slaves kneeling on the ground. The hot tea made these people curl up, and they all shivered and did not dare to make a sound. "The time has come. If you can't speak out, twist your tongue and send it to the government. You will never speak again in your life." Lily clapped her hands and said lightly. As soon as she said this, a group of servants became even more frightened. Like sifting through chaff, someone hurriedly said, "Madam, please spare your life, it was the eldest lady who told me not to mention it." This group of people didn't dare to speak just now. They had robbed someone from Yuanzio's yard before. In the morning, they also told who the murderer was. Now they didn't dare to open their mouths. Lily naturally knew that they were influenced by Yuanzio. He didn't dare to say anything after being warned. At this time, once someone spoke, Lily sneered and said nothing. Although the servant was still afraid that he would make Yuanzio angry after saying this, but at this moment, Lily was determined. As if they were trying to punish someone, a group of people still looked sad and said the name of the real murderer, to Madame, the one who beat the young marquis was the eldest wife's unmarried husband, Shen Zhulang of the Shen family. Everyone has heard with your own ears today that my Yuan family is loyal to Zhou and the emperor, leaving my son alone, but now we are in trouble. The scoundrel of the Shen family beat my son to death for being a singing girl. The Yuan family vows to seek justice. After Lily said this, the faces of those who came to express condolences showed signs of sympathy and regret. Mrs. Lu had already made preparations to file a complaint, but she just didn't think about it. Lily's attitude was so resolute today. She originally thought that Lily's heart would soften after Yuanzio cried and begged her. Now seeing Lily's determined look, Mrs. Lu felt relieved, thinking of her grandson who had died long ago. The eye circles couldn't help but turn red. The carriage had been prepared a long time ago. Due to the sudden incident, it was too late to ask someone to prepare a sign and deliver it to the palace in advance. He arranged for the steward around him to receive it for him. The scene of the Yuan family at this moment was in everyone's mind. There are many, so no one blames Lily for doing so. Lily and Mrs. Lu got on the carriage together, and a woman ran out in a panic, stopped the carriage, and said anxiously, "Madam, the eldest lady Jiao LOL is too worried at this time and has passed out." "Madam, hurry up, go check it out." When Mrs. Lu in the carriage heard this, a sneer appeared on her face. Before she could speak, Lily sat still and said, "Of course someone will call a doctor if she passes out and reports it. I don't have medical skills. Could it be that if I go see her, she will be fine?" After saying this, Lily scolded, "Hurry up and leave." "Madam," when the woman heard this, she wanted to open her mouth again. The driver driving the cart in front had already sensed the tension in the atmosphere. He whipped his horsewhip and the horse started to run away in pain. The news about the unexpected death of the young marquis in Dingui Marquis Mansion must have been received by the palace. Behi sent someone to the palace gate in advance to inform him of the news. When he arrived at the palace gate, the Empress Dowager had already sent a chamberlain to the palace. They were supposed to get off the carriage and walk into the inner palace, but due to special circumstances, the Empress Dowager specially issued a decree allowing Behi's mother-in-law and daughter-in-law to enter the palace in a carriage. After reporting the source of the matter to the Empress Dowager, the Yuan family had been loyal for generations, but now they ended up without a child. Naturally, the people in the palace understood how Lily felt at this moment. The Empress Dowager asked Lily how to resolve the matter. Lily said without hesitation, "Go back to the Queen Mother. The Shen family allowed the sons to commit crimes, and the sons did not teach. It is the fault of the father. Master Shen's sin is naturally unavoidable. As for Shen Chenyi, it is natural and right to kill people to pay for their lives, and to pay back debts. Although the Shen family also has meritorious deeds, their achievements cannot be compared with those of the Yuan family. In addition, Shen Chenyi and others have committed crimes, and it is only natural that one life is worth another." The Queen Mother nodded, and asked someone to ask for the Emperor's will. Yu Beihi was here. Acting within a certain range can be reported later, and a group of Yulan troops were dispatched for her to dispatch. After entering the palace and getting what they wanted, Lily and Lu retreated from the palace with the imperial edict. I just hope you can keep my peace in mind and don't soften your heart after being coaxed by that little bitch. Mrs. Lu wiped her tears and said tremblingly, while Lily lowered her head. My daughter-in-law thought wrong before, but Yuanziozu really hurt my heart this time. I will know better in the future. His biological brother was beaten to death by his fiancée. Even though his brother was not born from the same mother, the two of them having been together for more than 10 years, even if they have a dog, it is time for them to have feelings. Yuanziozu is not only not sad when her brother dies, but the first thing she thinks about is the safety of her fiancé. She does not talk about revenge or a clean break with the Shen family, but instead begs. This kind of behavior of Lily Gan and Shen Chenyi's family was really chilling. Seeing the determination in Lily's eyes, Mrs. Lu nodded, I just hope you can keep your word. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 695. In the past, Ganbei always focused on Yuanziozu in everything. She had never said anything cold to her before, but she was afraid that she would not be good enough to her. At this moment, Mrs. Lu just hoped that Bei would really realize her enlightenment. She was thinking about her grandson. Tears flowed down uncontrollably. The Yulan army was first sent to the Shen family to capture Shen Chenyi, but as Lily expected, Shen Chenyi had discussed with Shen's mother last night after getting into trouble, and escaped from the capital overnight. The leader of the Yulan army came back to tell Bei when he was about to die. Lily snorted, a monk can escape but cannot escape from the temple. Since the Shen family allowed Shen Chenyi to escape, the Shen family will not be able to escape the blame. Lily's hand was holding the decree she had just received from the palace. Although Shen Chenyi had escaped, his parents, siblings, etc. could not escape. They had all the Shen family captured and came. When the Shen family was escorted, Shen's father was completely naked. Langsha, after entering the Yuan family gate, he drank. Is there any more royal law? I am also an official of the imperial court. How can I allow women and children to be so humiliated? I want to go to the palace to complain to the emperor, he shouted loudly, and the servants in the room looked at each other in shock. Mrs. Lu was old and experienced. She couldn't bear the trouble. She was overly grieved by the untimely death of her grandson. She just fainted and was carried back to the room by Lily. At this moment, Lily was the only one to suppress the scene in Nyoda's hall. When she heard the noise outside, Lily continued to light incense, and Mother Shen's sharp voice rang out, you burst into my Shen family to take someone for no reason, Mrs. Gan, come out. Silently inserting 3 sticks of incense into the ash stove, Lily looked at the servants who were a little overwhelmed, and calmly ordered someone to send a pile of mourning clothes. The housekeeper next to her whispered, Madam, we don't have any extra filial piety at home. Young Master Ho died suddenly. These things had not been prepared in advance, and the young man was still young and did not have a son or a daughter at his knees, so the temporarily sewn mourning clothes were not enough. At this moment, Lily suddenly asked someone to bring a bunch of mourning clothes. The woman was a little afraid of being criticized, but also a little panicked, only some of the servants are still wearing new ones. Bring them all together. Lily glanced outside. The Shen family was being escorted by a group of Yulan troops. The place where the mourning hall is placed is not far from the outside. The Shen family being taken away should have attracted a lot of people to watch. At this moment, through the thick wall, you can also hear the voices of people talking outside. Next, after receiving her signal, the person quickly went down and picked up the mourning clothes. The Shen family was also escorted outside the lobby. At this time, Shen's mother's face was ashen. When he saw Lily coming out, he snorted coldly. You Yuan family have gone too far. My Shen family and your Yuan family are officials in the same dynasty. Why do you Gan have people escort our Shen family here like prisoners? Mother Shen now accused aggressively. But although her tone was loud, there was inevitably a hint of guilt in her eyes. She obviously knew why Lily asked people to take the Shen family here, but she was just pretending not to know at the moment. Yugong, our Shen, and Yuan families are all working for the emperor. You privately, my Zhulang and your Yuan family's wife are still married. If your Yuan family doesn't come up with an explanation, I will definitely go to the palace to explain this matter today. The Empress Dowager files a complaint and asks for justice. Lily first watched Mother Shen finish shouting with cold eyes, and then calmly shook her sleeves. You don't need to complain. I have already gone to the palace to ask for the emperor's decree because there was a coffin parked in the house. The imperial edict had already set up an incense table in the courtyard to offer it specially. Lily stretched out her hand at this moment and said, Mother Shen, who was still angry, suddenly felt like an eggplant beaten by frost when she saw this scene. Speechless. Serve Master Shen and Mrs. Shen to undress. Lily was speechless when she saw Mother Shen. After giving the order, Mother Shen began to hear that Lily had gone to the palace to find the Queen Mother, and she couldn't help but secretly scold Yuan Ziozu, this little bitch, for being useless. She also heard that Lily had people waiting to undress her. Before she could react, she saw a group of servants coming forward with a bunch of mourning clothes. Several maids pulled her to take off her clothes. Mother Shen was so angry that she was trembling all over. She glared at Lily and her voice sounded a little uncomfortable. How can this be unreasonable? At this moment, Lily's intention was very obvious. She wanted to let the Shen family put on mourning clothes to worship the young prince. Not to mention that the young prince was not an elder of the Shen family. What's more, even if he was a member of the Shen family, there were no elders coming. Shen's mother struggled desperately to express her filial piety to the younger generation, and started to curse loudly. Mr. Gan. You've gone too far to bully others. Even if a junior asks us to show him mourning, we're not afraid of shortening his life. I want to go to the palace and file a complaint. A group of Yulin soldiers held down the struggling members of the Shen family. Amid Shen's mother's shouts and curses, the Shen family members were moved from top to bottom, and their outer clothes were almost torn off. Father Shen's face was so angry that she was so red that she couldn't speak. Mother Shen's eyes were red. When she saw someone taking the mourning clothes to cover her up, she struggled so hard that the veins on her forehead bulged, and her face turned green and red, which was very scary. She was dying at this moment. Staring at Lily, you have to think clearly. Arjulang and Ziozu are engaged after all. I am Ziozu's future mother-in-law. Even if her brother dies, there is no reason for an elder like me to pay him filial piety, and I am not afraid of his suffering. Sorry. I know whether you can bear it or not. I advise you that if you are more sensible, you will naturally suffer less physical pain. Mother Shen's two sons were struggling too much at this time, so they were tied up when they were escorted to the Yuan family. Yes, the two daughters-in-law were so frightened that they were stripped off their clothes in front of everyone. They were so ashamed that they could only cover their faces and cry, unable to react at all. Only Mother Shen struggled fiercely, and some Yulin soldiers looked at her. Being a generation of women, it was not easy for them to do it themselves, and the wives did not expect Shen's mother to resist so fiercely, so they were unable to do anything to her for a while. The Xiao Ai was in their hands and they couldn't put it on Mother Shen's body. Seeing this scene, Lily raised her hand and slapped Shen's mother on the face without thinking. There was a crisp sound, and Lily Gan was originally the daughter of a general. When she was not married, she was proficient in riding and shooting. She also practiced martial arts with her father for several years, and her hands were quite strong. Mother Shen was originally a boudoir lady. Pampered, was slapped by Lily at this time. She didn't notice that her body was swaying and she bumped into her daughter-in-law on the side. Before her daughter-in-law could reach out to catch her in panic, Lily grabbed her. Her hair dragged her back again. Mrs. Shen, I advise you to be more sensible. I'm in a very bad mood right now. You didn't educate your adopted son. Shen Chenyi killed my son. Why are you pretending to be innocent and howling? My son is a serious official of the imperial court. Mr. Marquis, it is natural for you to kneel when we meet. Now I ask you to wear sackcloth and show mourning, but to atone for the sins of your son Shen Chenyi, I am mitigating the sins of your Shen family." After saying that, Lily stretched out her hand to remove the pearls and jade on Mother Shen's head. "Tear it off and throw it all over the floor." When the Shen family members heard that the young master was killed by Shen Chenyi, except for Shen's mother who already knew the inside story, the rest of them were shocked. Father Shen's eyes widened and he couldn't believe it. Staring at his wife, Mother Shen's eyes dodged. Just now she was slapped by Lily, which made her feel angry. Now her scalp was pulled and hurt again, but all this was not as good as Lily's calm tone, telling her not to do it. The same feeling when she was angered, Mother Shen felt a coldness rising from the solace of her feet. Her legs were trembling, and she forced herself to calm down. "You're talking nonsense. How could my son be a murderer? The evidence is conclusive, otherwise how do you think I could go to the palace to seek the will and bring you Shen family here?" Seeing that Shen's mother still refused to admit it, Lily didn't say anything more to her and pulled her hair into a mess. While someone handed over the mourning clothes, Mother Shen was frightened by Lily at this time. Although she was still reluctant, she did not dare to resist like she did just now. Once she put on the mourning clothes, a look of humiliation appeared on her face. Lily he also signaled to his servants to hand over the mourning cloth and hemp rope. When Mother Shen saw that in addition to wearing mourning clothes, she also had to wear mourning clothes, she suddenly had another seizure. Even if Shen's mother's biological father and mother passed away, she would not have to wear such heavy filial piety. But now, as a child of the Yuan family who is less than 15, she has to suffer such humiliation at such a young age. Mr. Gan, have you ever thought about Yuan Ziozu marrying into the Shen family again in the future? Hearing this, Lily raised her hand and slapped her again without saying anything, until Mother Shen staggered and fell to the ground. She covered her face and stared up at Lily in disbelief. Only then did Lily sneer, "One thing comes down to the other, today you Shen family members have to kneel down whether they want to or not." Lily's attitude was resolute. When the servants who were afraid to take action saw her like this, they rushed forward and pulled the Shen family's hair and clothes. Although the Shen family tried their best to resist, they couldn't stand it once they came to the Shen family. Knowing the truth, I felt a little guilty, and didn't dare to make any big moves. Secondly, this was the territory of the Yuan family, and the Yuan family had a large number of people. In the end, the Shen family was still changed into mourning clothes, and was escorted by Lily to kneel in front of the mourning hall. At first, Mother Shen was still cursing, but every time she cursed, Lily would have people pour tea into her stomach. When had Mother Shen ever been so angry? Even if she had met ladies with higher rank and position than herself in the past, most of these people were secretive, and on the surface everyone treated them with respect. Shen's mother had never encountered a person like Lily who managed people before, and she started to still, she cursed angrily, but later she drank too much tea, and when she wanted to go to the toilet, there were a group of girls watching her. She was led to kneel in front of the mourning hall, unable to move at all. She was already very old, and Mother Shen had a high status. It would be really embarrassing if she became incontinent in public. She had snot and tears streaming down her face. She cursed Lily in her heart for how vicious this move was, but she didn't say it on her lips. Dare to show off again, Shen's mother felt that this day was particularly long. Not only did she hate Lily at this moment, she also hated Yuan Ziozu, who did not come forward to plead for the Shen family. In the past, Yuan Ziozu kept saying that only Shen Chenyi was in her heart. Until now Shen Chenyi was in trouble, and the Shen family was so bad that Lily tortured her like this, but Yuan Ziozu didn't come forward to intercede for them at all, and the resentment in Shen's mother's heart grew up like a vine. To be continued. Canon Fodder strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 696. It's just that Yuan Ziozu didn't want to plead for the Shen family at this moment. After hearing that the Shen family was escorted to the Yuan family by Lily, Yuan Ziozu felt that something was wrong. She knew very well what kind of character Shen's mother was. How could she remarry into the Shen family after the Shen family was humiliated like this in public? Doesn't Lily's move mean to force herself into a corner? She wanted to go to Lily to plead for mercy, but the people in her yard were beaten for shielding the young marquee attendants in the morning. They couldn't get out of bed at the moment, so Lily placed new people around her. These people were ordered by Lily not to allow Yuan Ziozu to go out. Even if Yuan Ziozu wanted to go out to plead for the Shen family, they did not dare to let Yuan Ziozu go out. In the lobby, the Shen family was forced to kneel all day long. Mother Shen was sweating profusely. She was fed a lot of water. It was already very difficult for her, but she gritted her teeth and refused to shout. Yuan Ziozu came out, and Yuan Ziozu, who was locked up in the wing, was also very anxious. Lily didn't see her at all at this time. She pretended to be sick and sent someone to call Lily, but Lily replied that she was not a doctor and she wanted to run out to see Lily. The servants stopped her from seeing her. If she wanted to plead for the Shen family, she had to see Lily before she could do it. Yuan Ziozu thought about it, and finally had to come up with a way. She deliberately pulled her belt and hung it on the hanging beam, stood up, and when he kicked the stool down, he used too much force, which attracted the attention of others. When the maid outside hurriedly came in, she saw that Yuan Ziozu's face was green and black, she was struggling, and her eyes were bloodshot and purple. Outside the hall, Mother Shen couldn't bear it anymore and was about to ask Lily for mercy and go to the toilet, when a maid rushed in a panic. Before anyone arrived, a voice rang out, "Go back to Madam, the eldest lady is not well." Mother Shen, who was about to speak, was agitated when she heard this. She almost made a fool of herself in public. She gritted her teeth and held back, but her skirt was still wet, but now everyone's attention was focused on the person who made the noise. The maid who came to report the news saw the scene in the house and whispered in Lily's ear. She told her about Yuan Ziozu's intention to hang herself. After Yuan Ziozu was rescued, she said she wanted to see her. He met Lily and said that if he couldn't see Lily's face, he would die again. Lily stood up after listening to the girl's reply. When Mother Shen saw Lily was leaving, she was deeply afraid that if she left, she would want to go to the toilet later, but the servants would not allow her to go, so she did not care about being ashamed and said hurriedly, "I have endured it, damn it, I have to go to the latrine." She scolded Lily too much before. Lily was told to drink water every time she scolded her. Now when she moved, she could hear the water sloshing in her stomach. In addition, after enduring it for a long time, her whole body was sweating like rain. She really couldn't bear it at all. Sorry, if she could bear it for a moment and a half longer, she might pee in public. Shen's mother endured her resentment and finished her words. Seeing that Lily didn't say a word, she couldn't help but burst into tears. "Please." She was so fierce just now and refused to admit defeat. At this moment, he was so manipulated that he lost his temper. Mother Shen begged for mercy, but in her heart she was thinking that when Yuan Ziozu passed through the door, she would humiliate her in the same way. She looked at Lily uneasily for a long time. Lily waved her hand, and Mother Shen saw her raising her hand. The tears that had been held back for a long time suddenly flowed out. She couldn't walk now. If she got up, she would probably make a big fool of herself on the spot. In addition, her feet hurt from kneeling for a long time, so she had to beg and let the maid help her up. It was just the Yuan families. Everyone ignored Shen's mother's pleas. In the end, Shen's mother's tears and nose ran down. After seeing enough of the show, Lily signaled the two women to lift Shen's mother up and carry her out of the room. As soon as Shen's mother was carried away, Lily told people to keep a close eye on the Shen family for the young Ho Yes wake, and then she walked towards Yuan Ziozu's courtyard. Yuan Ziozu had just been lifted off the white silk, although she did not know matter how long he hung, he struggled too hard and still had a bruise on his neck. When Lily entered the room, she saw Yuan Ziozu lying on the bed, her face so pale that there was no blood at all. The bruise under her neck looked very hideous and terrifying. When she saw Lily coming in, Yuan Ziozu put her head to the side of the bed and silently began to shed tears. In the plot, Yuan Ziozu asked Lily to intercede for the Shen family. At first, Gan Lily ignored her, but later she was forced to use death. When Gan Lily heard that Yuan Ziozu had hanged herself, she panicked. Yuan Ziozu rushed over in a panic. Yuan Ziozu behaved in the same way at that time. She refused to pay attention to Gan Lily and turned her face to the side of the bed. Gan Lily coaxed her from left to right for a long time before she started sobbing and accusing Gan Lily. But how could Lily go to coax her now? Seeing Yuan Ziozu crying so sadly that her shoulders just kept twitching, Lily felt fed up and said, "Since the lady is sleeping well, what kind of slutty maid is this? Dare you say that the eldest lady doesn't want to live anymore?" Lily had obviously seen the scar on Yuan Ziozu's neck when she came in, but now she was telling lies with her eyes open. The servants all thought that Behi was taking this opportunity to have an attack, and they all knelt on the ground speechless. The little girl who sent the message was shaking like chaff. In the past, Lily Gan paid too much attention to Yuan Ziozu. Although Lily was very cold towards Yuan Ziozu after entering the mission, the little girl was afraid that Yuan Ziozu had hanged herself if the servants did not report it. If something really happened to Yuan Ziozu, no one would dare to bear the blame from Lily, so she reported the news to Lily after the accident. Unexpectedly, Lily opened her mouth to curse at this moment, and the little girl was so frightened that she almost cried. Then I saw Yuan Ziozu facing the inside of the bed, crying but not speaking, and I couldn't help feeling resentful of Yuan Ziozu. Mother doesn't love her daughter anymore. Lily just scolded the maid and didn't ask how Yuan Ziozu was doing. Yuan Ziozu was crying at first and wanted to wait for Lily to comfort her, but she stepped down from the stage and took the opportunity to plead for the Shen family. But she didn't expect Lily to fall off the maid without saying anything as soon as she entered the room. She neither asked her how she was hurt nor showed any signs of feeling sorry for her. Yuan Ziozu's tears almost came out again, and she said quietly, turned his head. At this time, her little face was pale, and her eyes were as dark as ink, and her hair was disheveled. She looked sad. After she said this, she choked up again, and her tears seemed to have broken off. It was like beads with threads. She must have hurt her throat when she hung herself before. After finishing her sentence, she covered her mouth with her hand and started coughing. "What time has it been? Madam, you haven't combed your hair or washed your face. Could it be that this is what I always teach you?" Lily didn't reply to Yuan Ziozu's words. Looking at her appearance, she started to accuse her gently, "Elder sister is dying. I have given you into my hands before, and I really dare not forget it for a day. You are a beautiful woman who has no illness or pain, so why should you lie in bed all day long? Your brother has passed away now, and I am also busy here. No, I just want to trouble Ziozu, and you can copy the sutras 100 times for him, help him transcend, and let him be reincarnated as soon as possible." After saying that, Lily didn't wait for Yuan Ziozu to react, and was about to let the girl pull Yuan Ziozu off the bed. Unexpectedly, after hearing this, Yuan Ziozu got the strength from nowhere, turned over, sat up from the bed, and stumbled towards Lily. He ran over, stretched out his hand and hugged Lily's legs. "Mother, mother, please spare Julang. Julang didn't mean to harm Ping An's life." He definitely didn't mean it. After she finished speaking, tears flowed out again and her body twisted. "I heard that mother dragged people from the Shen family away. I came here to kneel down for Ping An. has my mother ever thought that if I marry into the Shen family in the future, my parents-in-law and aunt will be offended by my mother in the future? How can my mother let me live? If I can't marry Zhulang, there will be no meaning in my life. Yuan Ziozu said with a look of sadness. Her tears slid down her face, and when they fell on her chin, they gathered into a ball and fell straight down. The white lily's clothes were all soaked. Looking at Yuan Ziozu's behavior, Lily sneered, "If your mother hears this, she will die without being able to close her eyes." "Mom, do you still remember the promise you made to my mother? Mother said that you will love Ziozu all your life and treat Ziozu as if you have already given birth to her. Ziozu has never asked your mother for anything in her life. Now she only asks her to spare the Shen family. Spare Zhulang." When Yuan Ziozu heard Lily's words, she couldn't help hugging her thigh again and begging. Lily was bored by hearing this, so she raised her leg without thinking and kicked her hard. Above Yuan Ziozu's chest. The original owner used to hold Yuan Ziozu in his hands for fear of falling, and hold it in his mouth for fear of melting. He did everything personally, and could be sarcastic to his son, but he was very concerned about Yuan Ziozu, no matter how big or small it was. Let alone hitting her, even touching a hair on her head made her feel very distressed. At this moment, Yuan Ziozu was kicked in the heart by Lily. When her body fell straight backwards, she fell to the ground on her back. When the drama in her chest entered her mind, Yuan Ziozu realized that Lily had kicked her. Her eyes widened in disbelief. Not to mention Yuan Ziozu couldn't believe Lily hit her, even the servants around were shocked by this turn of events. "I just regret that I loved you too much before. Since you can't marry Shen Zhulang, I don't want to live anymore. If you want to die, why don't you die early? You have never asked me for anything in your life, but your mother has asked for everything for you. Don't talk about life or death in front of me in the future. I treat you as if you are already dead. When will you treat me like your own mother again?" Yuan Ziozu, my love is also limited. Lily kicked her, feeling in her heart after venting her anger. Yuan Ziozu couldn't react for a while when she heard Lily's words. She was lying on the ground. She had just been kicked in the chest. Every breath she took seemed to be in unbearable pain. Her mind was buzzing. It took a while to realize what Lily had just said. The pain in her chest and Lily's sudden change of attitude made Yuan Ziozu panic and feel cold. Why is my mother so cruel to me? Isn't she afraid that I will really die? To be continued. Carrot. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 697. The Marquis is holding a funeral now. You are going to die. It just so happens that a thin coffin will be carried out for burial with the Marquis. This will save you one more funeral anyway. Lily Gan didn't warm herself up no matter what she did. Since Yuan Ziozu was a stepmother, Lily put on the face of a stepmother at this moment and said something mean to Yuan Ziozu. Seeing that her pale face suddenly turned into gold paper, then he stroked his own clothes. "I will die whenever you want, but for every day you live, you will have to copy scriptures for your brother. I have taught you for many years, but you are so shameless that you can't get married. Shen family, my heart has gone flying. I don't know what kind of ecstasy soup the Shen family has poured into you. If you eat like you will be dead. I'm afraid your mother doesn't want to see you in such a disgrace." Yuan Ziozu was kicked by Lily and heard the mean words from her mouth. Thinking of Lily Gan's love for her in the past, she couldn't believe Lily's sudden change of attitude. The pain in her chest coupled with the difficulty in accepting the fact made her cover her face and cry bitterly. How is mother going to treat Zhulang and the Shen family? Yuan Ziozu cried twice. Seeing Lily getting up to leave, she couldn't help but sit up and clutch her chest. In the past, Lily Gan had been very considerate to her, and she didn't feel comfortable at all. Yuan Ziozu went on a hunger strike for 2 days when Ganbei was pregnant with her child. In the end, Ganbei coaxed her for a long time before she calmed down. After that, he was worried that she would be unhappy and repeatedly promised to keep her temper. Yuan Ziozu only paid attention to her again after she didn't have children. Before Lily came, Yuan Ziozu heard that she had brought the Shen family over, and she was still very dissatisfied and gave her a look when she entered the house. Unexpectedly, she didn't dare to fall out after being beaten at this moment. Lily secretly laughed at Yuan Ziozu's mean temper. He was so nice and angry with her, but she was so angry and so evil that she didn't care. No wonder Shen's mother bullied her like that, grinding her to the point of miscarriage and driving her back to her parents' home when she heard that Shen's mother had the plague. But she rushed back to wait on him. Kill to pay for life, debt to pay back money. How to settle the matter? What Lily was thinking about was not to kill the Shen family at this moment. Although the Empress Dowager gave her the decree to kill the Shen family, she could not let the Shen family live. It would be a shame to kill Shen Chenyi, but if you want to kill the entire Shen family, it would be too cheap for the Shen family. The most important Yuan family will also change from being a sympathetic victim to being criticized by others, and the royal family may not necessarily agree to let the entire Shen family be executed because of this matter. The Queen Mother's words may only mean that she wants to give her a step down and let her vent her anger. But at this moment, Lily deliberately said these words to scare Yuan Ziozu, and Yuan Ziozu was really frightened. She didn't care that her chest hurt from being kicked just now, and she lay on the ground and started kowtowing. Every time she knocked, her head made a loud bang, and when her forehead hit the blue brick floor, it made a bang bang sound. She kept mumbling, "Please mother, please spare the Shen family, please spare Zhulang." Lily didn't say anything and let her kowtow. She was originally ready to leave, but when she saw Yuan Ziozu kowtow, she sat down instead. The servants didn't know what Lily was thinking. Seeing that she wasn't ready to leave, someone tentatively served her tea. Lily doesn't drink either. He took the lid of the teacup and poured out the tea foam, watching coldly as Yuan Ziozu banged her head and knocked on the ground one by one without saying anything. For a while, the only sounds in the room could be heard from Yuan Ziozu's begging and kowtowing. Other than that, the crisp sound when Lily picked up the lid of the teacup and touched it was occasionally mixed in with it. No one dared to breathe. Yuan Ziozu kowtowed more and more. My heart grew colder and colder. Her forehead hurt like a piercing pain. At first, in order to make Lily move, she tapped her head every time. The sound made people feel chilly, and her forehead soon became red and swollen, and the skin was broken after tapping a few times. When the blood and bruised skin hit the stone ground again, she couldn't bear it anymore. Her strength became weaker and weaker, and eventually tears suddenly covered her eyes. If it had been before, the first time she knocked, Ganbei would definitely hold her in his arms with heartache and ask her why she was so stupid, but now that she was kowtowing like this, Bei didn't say a word and instead watched the show aside. Yuan Ziozu not only had a headache on her forehead, her head also became dizzy, and the place where her chest had just been kicked made her breathless. She slowly stopped, raised her head and asked, "What did I do wrong? Why did my mother treat me like this? Does it hurt?" Lily glanced at the bloody spot on her forehead, picked up the teacup and threw it at Yuan Ziozu without thinking. Before the teacup hit her, the scalding hot water splashed. Yuan Ziozu was so frightened that her face turned pale, and she hurriedly wanted to reach out her hand to block it, but the hot water burned her palms, which was painful. A few drops fell on her face, and she couldn't help but twitch her cheeks and screamed loudly. "Ah! My son was in such pain when he was beaten to death by Shen Chenyi. Please help him. You have only kowtowed so many times today. Why don't you kowtow after it hurts for so long? Keep kowtowing. Your pain is not as painful as that of your brother. 1%, why are you afraid of pain? Since you want to plead for Shen Chenyi, you only need to kneel down a few times, How can such a good thing happen in the world? Lily hit her with a teacup, and frowned when she saw Yuenziozo crying ardently. Why are you crying? Your brother didn't cry when he died, but he is crying now. If you can't use up all the tears, wipe them away. Change your clothes and go to the morning hall to cry for me. Yuenziozo felt very aggrieved. When she heard Lily's words, her tears were like broken beads, but she never dared to make a sound again. She pursed her lips and held back the cry for a long time before she trembled. Yes, if I keep kowtowing, my aunt will spare Zhulang and the Shen family. Just now, she kept calling her mother, but now she was quickly replaced by her aunt. Yuenziozo also used this trick at the beginning. In the plot, in order to force Gan Lily to stop suing the Shen family and spare the Shen family's life, she committed suicide, then went on a hunger strike, and then called Lily to be her aunt. All these actions made Lily feel heartbroken. However, this trick worked for Lily because she really loved her and regarded her as her eyeball. Look, Lily doesn't have any love for Yuenziozo now, so she doesn't care what she calls her. Spare him. Bah! You just kowtowed and died here today, and I thought you were too sad for your brother and traveled west on a crane. After saying this, Lily sneered and stood up. Now I can see through you. You have become blind because of a man. In the past, you only thought that I was blind and used a fish like yours as a pearl. It will be good if you know more about things in the future, but if you don't blame me for being cruel. After teaching Yuenziozo a lesson, Lily raised her arms, flicked her sleeves and turned around to go out. A room full of maids were left behind to escort their master out of the house tremblingly. Lily told the maids to keep an eye on Yuenziozo and ordered her to copy out the scriptures. Not long after, Yuenziozo was heard crying loudly in the room. The Shen family in the front hall looked bitter and resentful at this time. When Lily returned to the morning hall, Shen's mother stared at her fiercely. She had been holding it in for too long just now, and Shen's mother couldn't hold her in the way, so she had to crouch in the flowers. Explanation: at this moment, the looks from the servants of the Yuan family made her feel ashamed and angry, but Mother Shen was helpless. Her face as a noble lady in this life was completely lost. In the past, Lily Gan was because of the fact that Yuenziozo would marry into the Shen family in the future. The son is very tolerant of Shen's mother, and he also understands that the Shen family is dissatisfied with Yuenziozo's filial piety due to the death of the previous generation Ding Guiho. Therefore, when Shen's mother occasionally sees Gan Lily making things difficult for her, Gan Lily usually tolerates it. Most of them. Unexpectedly, because of her son's death, this woman went crazy. Although Shen's mother was very resentful, thinking about the disaster her son had caused, she had to knock out her teeth, hold her nose and swallow the blood. At this time, she looked around after touching the face where Lily had hit her. Lily went to the palace to ask for his will. No matter how wronged she was this time, she had to endure it. From now on, she could only wait for Yuenziozo to marry into the Shen family, and then she could take care of things. Lily didn't care how much the Shen family resented the law, or how Shen's mother was thinking about how to frustrate Yuenziozo in the future. It was getting late, and the worshippers had all left one after another, and the front of the morning hall was gloomy. Yes, the Shen family members were kneeling listlessly in front of the morning hall, wearing mourning and mourning. They knelt for a whole day. Lily seemed to have forgotten that they needed to eat and drink. As soon as they moved, someone took something and forced them to kneel down. The masters of the Shen family had never suffered like this before. They did not dare to hate Lily. Shenshenyi, the brothers and sisters inevitably began to hate Shenshenyi for his actions. During the silence, a woman's sharp voice sounded from outside, "Let me go, you are robbing a civilian girl, which is against the law." The sound came from far away. When the Shen family members, who were originally a little numb, heard the sound, they subconsciously turned their heads to look, but Lily sat in front of the coffin and did not move. A girl wearing a floor-length cyan skirt with her head wrapped in floral cloth of the same color as the skirt. She looked to be about 20 years old and was holding a pipa. She was pushed in by several servants and was still struggling. With a panic look on his face, shouting, "Dingway Marquis Mansion bullies the weak and robs civilian girls." It was already late at night, and the woman's screams and cries could be heard far away. When she was pushed in, the candlelight in front of the morning hall flickered. Under the dim light, the room seemed quiet and strange. The woman saw seeing such a scene, she shivered and was about to speak when a mother-in-law had already brought her the morning clothes to put on. Although the woman resisted desperately, she was still put on the morning clothes in the end. She was reaching out to pull her head. She was wearing linen, and a woman reached out and slapped her on the face, pushing her into the lobby. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 698. Ah, let me go, let me go. When the woman saw the coffins placed in the room, she was so frightened that her face turned pale. She was beautiful. Although she was not beautiful, she still had some beauty. "This is the girl whom Mr. Ho wanted to sing last night," had an average appearance, but her voice was still clear. When Lily sent people to the Shen family today, she also sent a servant to look for her. This woman originally lived outside the city. Her family was poor and she made a living by singing. When Shen Chenyi escaped from the city with the connivance of Shen's mother, she first hid for 2 days. Finally, she was so hungry that she had no choice but to touch this woman's house. When she saw her benefactor coming to her door, the girl was filled with joy. Although Shen Chenyi was uneducated and incompetent, her appearance and eloquence were really powerful, otherwise she wouldn't have coaxed Yuan Ziozu to death in the first place. His family background was extraordinary, so it was natural for her to be a singer. It could be seen from his clothes that such a tall and mighty man had saved her once again from a dandy. Thinking that he had beaten a young prince to death for her, the singing girl was so grateful that she took him in without saying a word, and had an affair with him without a matchmaker, and finally gave birth to a child. Before the marriage to the main wife was completed, an unknown married woman gave birth to a child first. Under such circumstances, Yuan Ziozu was willing to get married. In the end, she became a sister, and it became a legend that the two women served one husband together. The singing girl is noble and righteous, and does not like the wealth of the marquis. Yuan Ziozu's loyal mother-in-law and daughter-in-law love, the two girls are not jealous of each other, and the world is full of rumors. On the contrary, Gan Bei's son has become the powerful man who robbed civilian girls, and he deserves to be punished. Being beaten to death and being applauded after death made Lily laugh and cry every time she thought about this. "Let me go, where are you going?" the singing girl was still screaming. Lily was so impatient that someone blocked her mouth. "When my son invited you to come to my house to sing, you accepted the money but didn't fulfill his wish. You are quite brave." The singer's mouth was currently being strangled by a piece of white silk, and she stared at Lily with wide eyes. When Lily finished speaking, the person who had strangled her mouth with something stretched out his hand and let go. Then she trembled and said, "Although I am from a poor family, I don't want to be a concubine. Even if the Lord's house is filled with wealth, you can't do it. As soon as you enter the Lord's house, the door is as deep as the sea." Hearing this, not only Lily couldn't help laughing, but the Shen family members on the side couldn't help showing disgust on their faces. Listen, Shen Chenyi beat my son to death and got a lawsuit because of such a woman." Lily covered her mouth with her sleeves, and her words made the Shen family unable to lift their heads. Shen's mother only knew that her son had beaten Mr. Ho to death, but she didn't know why she beat Gan Bei's son to death. When the incident happened suddenly, Shen Chenyi got into trouble and told her to go out of the city to avoid the limelight for 2 days. Knowing that her son was in trouble, Mother Shen just told him to hide quickly, before she had time to ask him why. When she heard whether it was for a singing girl or for such a woman, Mother Shen almost spat out a mouthful of blood when she thought of the torture she had suffered today. What do you want to get into the palace? What do you do to seek wealth? You also know that you are from a poor background, and you don't want to be a concubine? You are not even qualified to be a concubine. After finishing laughing, Lily taunted the singing girl. After she said this until her face turned red, Lily sneered again. There are a lot of people in the house who are younger and more beautiful than you, and they want to marry you as my concubine without even looking at your appearance. Since the slave is not beautiful, why did the young Marquis want to rob him by force that day? He was currently in the Marquis's mansion. The singing girl knew that she was under the control of others, but she refused to accept it. Although the slave status is not high and not as beautiful as the concubines in the house, I still have the backbone. I took the money. Of course you should have sung a song and listened to the young master. You took the money and did nothing. Do you think the money fell from the sky? It's so easy to earn. Lily didn't want to say more to her. On weekdays, you can earn 10 cents a day from singing. Yesterday, my son received a total of 5 taels of silver. Since you received the money, you should naturally sing to him. He couldn't hear it at first, but now you send him to the funeral. Although what Ganbei he hates most in his heart is not the singing girl, the death of Xiahaya is also inseparable from the singing girl. Since Ganbei he cannot enter the mission to fulfill the original owner's wish when he married Ding Guiho as his stepmother, Lily we should try our best to speak out for the original owner. When the singing girl heard this, she felt a little unhappy. If you don't want to sing, the worst thing you can do is return the money to the Marquis. Madam, as long as you send someone to send me back, I will return the money to the Marquis. At this moment, Mr. Ho was dead. Why did she come to pay back the money? Lily didn't want to say anything more to her, so she just had people drag her out. When collecting the money, she didn't think about paying it back. Now she is dead. Just pretending to be loyal and righteous, the singing girl screamed, "The world is bright, is there any royal law in the Marquis?" Madam, the stewardess was waiting for Beihe to give the order. The Yuan family was now dead. Even if Beihe went too far, there were rumors outside that the Zhou royal family would also see the Dingui Haofu as the capital of several generations. For the sake of serving the dynasty, he should be more tolerant to the people in the palace. Otherwise, when Lily went to the palace to ask for the order, she would not have received the Empress Dowager's order so easily. The 5 taels of silver will be used as her purchase deed. Find someone to write a contract, take it to her home and have her parents take their fingerprints. If she doesn't sing, take off a piece of her clothes and see how long she can keep her mouth strong. Such a loyal woman. Lily had many tricks up her sleeve. As soon as the words spread, as expected, the sound of a singing girl playing the pipa could be heard outside not long after. The Shen family heard clearly from the sidelines. Although the Shen family was full of hatred for the singing girl at this time, Shen's mother saw that the easy-to-handle Gan Lily turned into the fierce and domineering person she is now after her son's death. She originally thought that this matter with Yuan Ziozu dealing with it, Lily will naturally fade away the matter after a while. When Shen Chenyi and Yuan Ziozu get married, this marriage may be able to resolve their grievances, but at this moment Lily seems to be greatly affected. Her temperament changed due to the stimulation, and Mother Shen realized that she had thought too well before. Yuan Ziozu was noisy and refused to eat at night. When the servants came and went, Beihe had the food, tea, snacks, and other supplies removed from her room. The singing girl also sang in the home mansion for 2 consecutive days, singing until her voice broke. I was so dumb that I couldn't even make a sound at the end. But she didn't dare to stop at all. Once she stopped singing, Lily had her clothes stripped off. She was now stripped down to only one piece of obscene clothing. If she took it off again, she would be naked in broad daylight. She remembered that she had accepted the money but was unwilling to follow the young Marquis into the house to sing, and now she felt regretful. It's a pity that it's too late to regret. Although the weather was not too hot at this time, It was not cold either. The young Marquis stayed in the house for 3 days and prepared for the funeral. The Shen family breathed a sigh of relief and thought that was the end of the matter. Shen's father had been an official for many years and was pampered. Over the years, he has rarely been angry like this, but now he was forced to kneel down for a few days by Lily. He had suffered enough. Not to mention, the people in the Marquis also spoke coldly to him. I thought that this time Lily would let the Shen family go home after the funeral of the young Marquis, but she didn't expect that at the time of the funeral, Lily would ask Father Shen and Mother Shen to hold the coffin. Hearing this, Mother Shen was so angry that she almost shed tears again. Ms. Gan, don't bully others too much. Your son is just a junior, and now you want me to support him. Normally, the descendants of the direct descendants of the family hold the memorial ceremony, but Lily asked the Shen family to hold the ceremony. In the eyes of Shen's mother, this was a deliberate abuse of the Shen family. She knelt down in mourning for the young prince for several days. Just like a junior, the general felt very aggrieved for a long time, and now he wanted to support the young Master Ho. The Shen family thought that the grievances they had endured for a long time were vented. Lily looked at the haggard Shen family. The corner of his mouth curled up. My son is still young. He has no heirs, so my Yuan family ends up without a son. Shen Chenyi killed my son for a trivial matter, leaving my Yuan family with no heirs. It's your fault for not raising a godfather, and now I want you to support him. What's wrong? My Yuan family has made great contributions to the great Zhou dynasty. Could it be that Mr. Shen thinks that my Yuan family should end up like this? Today, you have to praise the spirit, or you have to kneel down if you don't praise it. Now I am a lonely widow, and I am the one who sues. I'm not afraid even if I go to the emperor. As soon as Lily said these words, Father Shen remembered that she had no scruples now. If trouble broke out, she would have gone too far. But as she said, first of all, she had to take care of herself for raising a son, and secondly, the emperor, seeing that the Dingui Marquis had been loyal to the imperial court for several generations, and now that the inheritance was cut off, even if the Shen family had been wronged, the emperor would probably appease the Yuan family first, but it was a pity that he had raised a son who was a nuisance. Father Shen could not bear it and felt aggrieved, and finally he still endured the shame and held up the spiritual tablet. This funeral made the Shen and Yuan families unhappy. When the young master's coffin fell to the ground, the Shen family couldn't wait to leave, but Lily signaled the Yuan army to surround the Shen family. What else do you want to do? Now that I have held the spiritual tablet, I have been kneeling for a few days. Don't bully others too much. Mother Shen stayed at Yuan's house these days. She was not allowed to eat or drink freely. In order to keep watch for the little Ho Ye, she didn't even sleep. After sleeping for a few days, she had never been so angry before. At this time, she could no longer bear it and wanted to return to her house. When Lily stopped her again, Mother Shen couldn't help but feel scared, even if she had been frightened by Lily in the past 2 days. Some collapsed. What did Mrs. Shen say? Now that my son has been buried in peace, forget about the past. I now think clearly that Ping'an is dead. Even if he kills Shen Chenyi, he cannot be brought back to life. Lily. After saying this, Mother Shen, who had an ugly face at first, breathed a sigh of relief. She didn't expect Lily to say that she would spare her son's life. Although Mother Shen also had feelings for her son after knowing the whole story of Shen Chenyi beating Xiaohe to death. Angry, but after all, he is his own flesh and blood. No matter how much I hate him, I can't bear to watch him die. A look of surprise appeared on Mother Shen's face. Before she could speak, Lily continued, since your Shen family beat one of my sons to death, you should naturally compensate me for a son. Shen Chenyi and Yuan Ziozu had already made a marriage contract. Now that the two of us have reached the age of marriage, let's settle the matter here. I will ask the Queen Mother for a favor and let Shen Chenyi marry into the Yuan family. After saying this, Lily did not look at the dumbfounded look of the Shen family. Letting the servants help him get into the carriage, the Yulan army surrounding the Shen family dispersed. It took a long time for Shen's mother to understand the meaning of Lily's words. She was so angry that she couldn't even lift her breath and fell down on the spot. The singing girl in the Yuan mansion had a severely inflamed and ulcerated throat due to singing for several days, and she could no longer make any sound. Her fingers were already bloody from playing the pipa for too long. The reason why her throat was red and swollen was that she had a high fever last night. Behi sent someone to ask a doctor to come over and take a look. The doctor checked her pulse and shook his head. He only said that the injury was easy to cure, but the voice was difficult to treat. She had oversung because of it. Normal speech will be affected in the future, and I can no longer make a living by singing. Someone sent the singing girl back. Before the white silk hanging in the house was completely removed, the girl from Yuanziozu came back and said that Yuanziozu was ill. In the past few days, Yuanziozu heard that the Shen family was being escorted by Baihe to keep vigil for her younger brother, and she was worried that her parents-in-law would be humiliated and embarrassed. She was extremely anxious, but this time Lily seemed to be hard-hearted because of her son's death. No matter how she begged, it was of no use, and she began to hang herself. But in the end, not only did she not attract Lily's pity, but she kicked her. Yuanziozu later tried a hunger strike, but from then on Lily would not even let anyone give her water. If she had to eat 1 or 2 meals, she could bear it, but Yuanziozu couldn't bear it without drinking water for 1 or 2 days. She could barely bear it on the first day, but by the second day she was in extreme pain. She passed out before the funeral of the young Hoye was finished. But at that time, the servant was beaten by Lily. As long as she was still alive and breathing, who would dare to report back to Lily? It wasn't until the funeral was over and Yuanziozu was really dying that anyone came to report the matter to Lily. Yuanziozu has not taken in water for several days. Her cheeks were already dry and peeling, and her whole body was like a flower that had lost a lot of nutrients. The skin on her cheeks no longer had the softness and luster of a young girl. Her lips were dry and grinning, and shadows could be seen under her eyes. After a while, he fell asleep and kept shouting, "Water!" The girl in the room was kneeling on the ground and did not dare to make a sound. Lily was wearing a black plain robe and sitting in front of Yuanziozu's bed. Every time Yuanziozu said a word, her lips would split a little. Tiny blood beads came out. After moistening some of her dry mouth, she couldn't wait to stick out her tongue and lick it. Give her some water at this time. Lily was not ready to kill Yuanziozu. Seeing her dry and dehydrated appearance, she signaled to her servants to bring over a water bottle. When the cold water hit Yuanziozu's face, she shuddered. Slowly opened his eyes. It's just that Yuanziozu's thoughts are not completely clear at this moment, but her lips are moistened by the water source. She has not drank even a drop of water for several days. At this time, she opened her mouth to pick up the water in a panic. When she drank it to the anxious point, she couldn't hold back. Even though she was coughing, she couldn't bear to keep her mouth shut. People who have never been thirsty will never know the feeling of not drinking water for several days. Yuanziozu didn't know where the strength came from in the end. She stretched out her hands to support her body and sat up from the bed. She thought to herself in a panic. When he reached out to grab the kettle, he was so strong that even the maid holding the kettle couldn't get away from her, and she snatched it away. Are there any more? Yuanziozu was in a state of embarrassment at this time. She drank all the water in the teacup quickly. She bit her lip and asked. When she turned around, she saw the cold expression on the side. Lily, this time Yuanziozu subconsciously showed fear on her face. Ziozu, have you figured it out? Do you still want to go on a hunger strike? Lily motioned to the servants to fill a new bottle of water. Yuanziozu drank it all quickly and drank up the water. Then she gasped. Wiping her mouth and holding 2 empty pots in her hands, she couldn't help but shed tears again when she heard Lily's words. "You are ruining your body like this, it really hurts my mother's heart. Isn't this killing her? Seeing you in such pain, I really..." Lily said, taking out the handkerchief and pressing the corners of her eyes. Yuenziozu, who was already crying, was still a little scared. This time she went on a hunger strike. Lily not only failed to coax her as before, but also had people cut off her food and water. This really cast a shadow in Yuenziozu's heart. Lily, when she was asked for the first time whether she would go on a hunger strike, she instinctively wanted to shake her head. But after hearing Lily's last words, Yuenziozu felt a sense of grievance in her heart. She began to rejoice and guessed that Lily was it's not that he still loves her. The reason why he was so fierce and mean to her before was just because he died peacefully, and she was filled with anger. Now if she goes on a hunger strike, Lily will still come to see her in a panic, proving that her hunger strike is still useful to her. Thinking of this, Yuenziozu endured the complicated thoughts in her heart and began to sob softly. "Does Auntie still feel sorry for me? As Auntie, I only have brother Pingan in my heart at the moment. Zhulang didn't mean to kill Pingan. Auntie, believe me. Auntie, please spare the lives of the Shen family. Please." Lily's hand that was wiping her tears slowly stopped after hearing her words. Yuenziozu was still pleading at first, but seeing Lily's cold eyes, the rest of her words she didn't dare to speak anymore, and her voice slowly became quieter. Lily's expression was cold now, and the strange look in her eyes frightened Yuenziozu. Yuenziozu didn't dare to speak anymore, and remained silent, only wiping her tears. Lily looking at her, he sneered. "Ziozu, stop going on such a silly hunger strike, and don't mention such things, mother really doesn't like to hear it." Yuenziozu didn't say anything and just turned her head away gently. When Lily saw her like this, she stood up. The girl behind her hurriedly moved the chair she was sitting on to block the way. "Okay, you are almost better. For such an old man, don't be willful in the future. There are a lot of things going on in the house, so I will go back first and copy more scriptures to pray for your brother." After saying that, Lily turned around and walked out. After leaving the inner room, the small bookcase separated by a bead curtain in the corner of the hall outside the screen was filled with things that she hadn't had time to put away. There were a lot of big characters written on it, but every time what was copied on the piece of paper was not the verses that Lily had ordered to pray for the young Marquis that day, but the 3 characters Shenshenyi. When Lily saw this scene, she glanced into the inner room again, and then turned around and left without hesitation. Go. That night, news came from the kitchen that Yuenziozu refused to eat and return the food. When Lily heard the news, she just frowned lightly. She doesn't eat? I just cut off her food and water. As long as she doesn't die, I don't care how she lives. Lily went to see Yuenziozu before. Yuenziozu probably thought that her threat was effective. After eating and drinking enough, after gaining strength, she started tossing again. She didn't eat and no one begged her to eat. When the servant who was talking back saw Lily's calm face, the soles of her feet felt cold. Every 2 or 3 days, Yuenziozu was dying. Lily once again had her drink a lot of water and food. She didn't care how Yuenziozu was ruining her body now. On the contrary, as long as she was alive, as for her it has nothing to do with Lily if her body cannot be defeated after this incident. Yuenziozu could grit her teeth at first and endure it, but Lily's method was the most torturous. Give her a glimmer of hope when she is about to die. She continued to survive, and finally her food was cut off again and again, and she could not last more than 10 days. Yuenziozu became a little scared of the feeling when she almost died of thirst and starvation several times. Half a month later, she once again when Lily forced her to drink porridge and water, the person who served her meals in the kitchen never mentioned her refusal to eat again. It was obvious that after this period of treatment, she had become more honest. Taking advantage of this half-month period, Behi went to the palace to ask for an edict from the Queen Mother, asking Shen Chenyi of the Shen family to marry into the Yuan family. The marriage between the two families had been decided long ago, but there were too many things that delayed it, so the marriage has not been consummated until now. After the death of the Yuan family, the Zhou royal family was thinking about how to appease Lily. If the Shen family must be unwilling to kill Shen Chenyi, and if they want to send the Shen family to prison, it would be a bit too much. Now that Behi's issue has done so, he has not asked the emperor to kill Shen Chenyi to compensate for his son's life, but used such a method to turn hostility into friendship, and everyone in the royal family was very satisfied with it. Behi's entry into the palace to request this request went very smoothly. The emperor agreed to her request without even asking the Shen family for their opinion. Anyway, the Shen family had a prosperous line of heirs, so even the loss of a son would not affect the succession. The Yuan family had to protect the family for generations. All the men in the Wei kingdom died cleanly, and the only seedling left behind also died in Shen Chenyi's hands. Now that it has such a happy ending, everyone should be happy. When she learned the news, Shen's mother was so bitter that she could not speak. Her son, who was originally a good man, had now become a member of the Yuan family because of a decree. Shen Chenyi had killed the young Ho Yet. Lily should have she hated him to the core. At first, Lily tried her best to frustrate the Shen family. She didn't know what kind of methods she would come up with to deal with her son in the future. She was worried about her son's future and thought of the son she had lost. Shen's mother he fainted when he received this decree. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 699. After receiving the order, Behi sent people to find Shen Chenyi. The Shen family was not too anxious about this matter. After all, for the Shen family, it was not a glorious thing for their son to marry into the Yuan family, but rather a shame. Now, Shen's mother was worried that Shen Chenyi had never left her side. When she left for the first time, she was deeply afraid that he would not be able to eat or drink well. She also did not know where her son was now. She wished that her son would come back immediately, but now Shen's mother wished that Shen Chenyi could run away farther and farther away. She hated Lily to the core. She would rather Shen Chenyi not come back within 3 to 5 years than that Shen Chenyi be found by Lily and become someone else's son. Therefore, despite the Queen Mother's intentions, the Shen family has always been less active in this marriage. When Behi sent people to look for Shen Chenyi, Shen's father took sick leave and was at home, and Shen's mother also stayed behind closed doors. Originally, the Shen family thought that it would be very difficult for Lily to find Shen Chenyi when she was in such a negative situation. The Shen family even laughed at the fact that the Yuan family sent people to look for Shen Chenyi, but they did not expect that in just 5 days, a group of Yuan troops with Shen Chenyi was caught just outside the city. He was not caught alone, but also the singing girl whose voice was hoarse. In the heat of the moment, he had the ability to beat the young prince to death in Dingguiho mansion, but Shen Chenyi was armed with force, but actually had no ability to make a living. During the time when he escaped from Shen mansion, although Shen's mother had given him money to keep him company, but now that he was used to the life of an official's son, and he had never been short of money in the capital in the past, he spent it lavishly and without restraint. The money was originally given to him by Shen's mother. It's for emergencies. But Shen Chenyi didn't understand the ways of the world, and sometimes he didn't understand when people cheated him. In less than 3 or 5 days, all the money was spent. He himself also knew that beating the young Hoya of the Yuan family to death was a serious crime. He was deeply afraid that the capital city would be affected by the storm, so he hid and did not dare to go back to the Shen family. Originally, he wanted to leave the capital and go out for 2 years to establish his own influence, but it was a pity that a penny was too much for the heroic man. He was penniless, let alone going far, and he didn't even have the money to set up a road and buy horses. Therefore, Shen Chenyi had to hide in a corner for a few days. When he couldn't bear the hunger anymore, he went out to steal the chickens and dogs from the farmers. As time passed, the villagers were naturally angry and frightened, and just regarded it as a bad wild boar. For a person like Shen Chenyi, a piece of chicken and dog meat is just something he can eat anytime he wants in his daily life. But for the people in the village, these are already a fortune. The young adults in the village spontaneously organized to want after catching the chicken thief. Shen Chenyi was chased by the villagers when he struck again, and escaped to a village home. It's a coincidence. The house he hid in was the house of the singing girl for whom he impulsively beat Mr. Yuan to death. The singer has hated the Yuan family since she was forced to sing by Lily. She was thinking about the hero who helped her in the past. In fact, during the days when the Yuan family was humiliated, she had done it countless times. She had imagined that Shen Chenyi would suddenly appear in front of her, just like when the young master who rescued her from the siege forced her to sing, and pulled her away. But she didn't expect that the man she hadn't seen at Yuan's house would appear in front of her alive. The singer took Shen Chenyi in. Although Shen Chenyi was not young anymore, it was because of his usual personality. His parents never taught him how to be careful between men and women. Desperate, he hid in the singing girl's room where he had food and drink, so the singing girl hid him and he stayed. The singing girl is quite old. She has just begun to fall in love with Shen Chenyi, and now her lover is right in front of her. What can't happen when two men and women are in the same room? Therefore, Gan Chai met fierce fire, and by the time Lily caught Shen Chenyi in the end, the singer and he had already become husband and wife. Because Shen Chenyi was caught by Lily's people, Lily naturally took him back to the Yuan family. At this moment, the singer was forced to kneel on the ground by several women. Her parents didn't know what happened at first. "My son, this girl's parents are from poor rural areas." When they saw a group of wolf-like officers and soldiers rushing into their home, they were already frightened. When they saw a man being found in their daughter's room, she was all frightened. Tremble. Although Shen Chenyi was a bit of a bastard, he saw that the singing girl was being held by a few women and her clothes were torn to pieces. The women now knew the fact that Shen Chenyi was the future son-in-law of the Yuan family, so after discovering that the singer was having an affair with Shen Chenyi, he was not polite to her. When he caught her, he slapped her several times until the corner of her mouth was broken and she bled. Shen Chenyi was originally a person who was not afraid of anything. Seeing such a scene now, he felt deeply that his woman had been insulted and wanted to jump up several times. However, although he knew a few martial arts skills, what was holding him back was a group of palace guards. He had just when he jumped up, the guard commander struck him on the back with the back of a knife, and then knocked him back to where he lay. Humph. With so many people beating the two of us, how can we be considered heroes? If you have the ability to challenge me, can you believe that I will beat you one by one until you are full of teeth? Shen Chenyi was suppressed at this time, but there was no words in his mouth. To be honest, he has a pair of unruly thick eyebrows, and his big eyes are even more unyielding now. He is staring at Lily fiercely. He is wearing a grey short coat. He is currently being escorted by the palace guards. When he came back, it was obvious that he had experienced a fierce fight. His hair was a little messy, and there were a few blood marks on his handsome cheeks. His clothes were torn open, revealing a large piece of strong chest. He was shouting while being pressed down. He was standing still, but at the same time he desperately wanted to hold his head up, which shows that this man has a stubborn and fierce temper. "Madam, Shen Zhulang was found in the home of a man named Go in a place called Taisu village about 3 miles outside the capital." The leader of the guards stepped forward and replied. Shen Chenyi was still sneering, "If one person does the work, the other person will be responsible. I will kill him. Come on, Yuan Pingan, that worthless little thing who only knows how to force women, come at me if anything happens, don't go at my woman, she is innocent." A look of gratitude appeared in the eyes of the singer girl whose face was bruised after saying one sentence, but she opened her mouth. I wonder if she had screamed when she was arrested before, but now she couldn't utter a word at all. The voice comes. Your woman? There is no matchmaker and no betrothal, why do you call me your woman? Shen Chenyi beat someone to death, but now there was no sign of guilt on his face. Instead, he shouted confidently, one person does the work and the other takes responsibility. Lily, there was an unknown fire in his heart, but he suppressed it and asked him calmly, if there is no matchmaker, such a woman should be handed over to the government and punished with the penalty of losing her virginity. When the singer heard this, a look of fear appeared on her face. Shen Chenyi was originally a person with well-developed limbs, a simple mind, and a very impulsive personality. When he heard Lily's words, he shouted, Chunmi and I, we are already married, she is my woman, and she is with me, how can I call it losing my virginity? After talking for a long time, Lily dug a hole and gave him a set of drills. Now seeing Shen Chenyi saying such words himself, when the people around him heard this, their faces showed surprise, and Lily hooked. He curled his lips and was about to speak when a group of footsteps sounded outside. Several women were still chasing after them and shouting, Master Shen, the servants haven't informed you yet, you can't go in like this. Mrsun, please don't listen to this little beast's nonsense. Father Shen heard Shen Chenyi's words before he even entered the house. He was so anxious that he broke out in a lot of cold sweat. Although he hated his son for causing trouble, not only has the Shen family been embarrassed, but since being forced by Lily to honor the little Howie, the Shen family has lost a lot of face in Beijing. Father Shen said he was ill some time ago and stayed at home. Firstly, he didn't want to mess with Lily. The first was to find Shen Chenyi and let him join the family of Zhu Yuan. Secondly, his family was forced to watch the funeral of the young master. It was too embarrassing. Father Shen was deeply afraid of being laughed at behind his back, so he kept hiding at home and did not dare to come out. Unexpectedly, a servant reported back today, saying that Shen Chenyi was caught by Lily. Although Lily shouted that the two families wanted to marry Qin and Jin, for the sake of Yuan Xiaozhu, she no longer pursued Shen Chenyi's behavior of beating her son to death, but comparatively, if someone beat his son to death, Father Shen would have to ask someone to pay for his life. When he dared to force the Shen family to hold the funeral for young Master Ho, it didn't look like he was magnanimous. Therefore, Shen's father led people towards the Yuan family in a panic. Unexpectedly, his son started to cause trouble. Besides, another trouble happened now. I heard that he had married someone outside. Father Shen's legs went weak and he almost fell to the ground. He ignored the panic in his heart and hurriedly strode towards Zheng Tang, rushed forward, followed closely by Shen's mother. She glared at the singer hatefully, and naturally recognized the girl. This bitch has no shame and seduced my son. Mother Shen let out a poof as she entered the door, glared at the singer, pointed at her and started to curse, shameless whore, shameless thing. Her son was involved in a lawsuit, and this happened again when he went out. Mother Shen was so angry that she panicked and scolded the singer several times until she burst into tears. Lily then sneered. Master Shen was a noble person that I couldn't even invite back then, but now he comes uninvited. Father Shen thought of the scene when Lily sent people to forcibly arrest the Shen family, and then thought of his own behavior of breaking into the Yuan mansion now. He also knew that Lily was sarcastically speaking, so his face turned a little red, but he still persisted. My son is young and has been deceived by this bitch. How could he marry her? Dad, when Shen Chenyi heard what Father Shen said, she struggled hurriedly, I like Chunmi. Chunmi is already my woman. She can do things for herself. If anything happens, just come to me. What's wrong with Chunmi? To be continued. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 700. Shut up. At this moment, the Shen family was still thinking of ways to save Shen Chenyi's life, but he only wanted to save the singing girl. Shen's mother was so angry that she even looked at her son with displeasure. She was about to speak again. Scolding, Lily had already interrupted what Mother Shen wanted to say. Okay, this is not the place for your Shen family to educate their son. The Queen Mother has already made a decree. If Shen Chenyi marries someone privately, it will be disrespectful and disrespectful. No wonder Shen Chenyi beat my son to death. Now it seems that these two we had an affair for a long time. Maybe Shen Chenyi was unwilling to marry Xiaozu in order to keep his relationship with this woman private, so he deliberately beat my son to death, thinking that he could defy the marriage. At the beginning, I thought my son was fine. How did such a disaster happen? Now the truth is revealed. Whether it was resisting the imperial edict and disrespecting the name, or by he accusing Shen Chenyi of having an affair with a singing girl and wanting to regret the marriage and beating the young marquis to death, the Shen family did not dare to accept any of these accusations. For the sake of the Yuan family's loyalty for generations, not only the Queen Mother issued an edict, but the Emperor also issued an imperial edict. If Shen Chenyi killed the young Hoye, it was only his fault, but if he disobeyed the edict, it would be his fault. The entire Shen family's matter will be dealt with. When the Emperor takes the blame, the entire Shen family will lose their heads because of Shen Chenyi's actions. Even if the Emperor is generous and merciful, if Shen Chenyi had an affair before marriage and beat his future brother-in-law to death in order to break up the marriage, I am afraid that the people of the Zhou dynasty would have to swallow the Shen family to death if they spit. No matter what the outcome was, the Shen family was not willing to bear the burden of such a singing girl. It's just that this is the idea of the Shen family. Shen Chenyi cannot understand the idea of his parents. At this time, when he heard his parents belittling his woman, he struggled unconvinced. Her face turned red with anger. Chunmi is not a prostitute, she is my woman. While the fuss was going on, Lily watched with cold eyes and motioned to the servants to bring her tea. Watching this big drama, Shen's father and Shen's mother saw that a disaster was coming, and their son was still trying to figure it out. They both felt like crying when they thought of the disasters Shen Chenyi had caused one after another. If Shen Chenyi, the young marquis of the Yuan family who was beaten to death, is punished, he alone will die. If he resists and disrespects the decree, Shen Chenyi will kill everyone in the Shen family. Although she felt sorry for her son, after all, Shen's mother still had children and grandchildren, so she couldn't sacrifice the entire Shen family for one son. At first, the Shen family was worried that their good son had been turned into a son-in-law by Lily for no reason. Now Shen's mother couldn't care less about her heartache. She glanced at Lily. At this time, even Shen's mother still hated Lily for torturing her. But at this moment, I still had to hold back my anger and begged softly. Family scandals should not be made public. My son was bewitched by this wretched maid and did something against heaven. Now this wretched maid dares to destroy the marriage given by the emperor. In my opinion, he should be executed. The marriage between Xiaozu and Zhulang is full of troubles. Now don't let any troubles arise because of these little things. The singer girl started to cry uncontrollably after being beaten. Now when she heard Shen's mother saying that she was going to be executed, she was stunned for a moment, and then started struggling like crazy. Lily sat crookedly in her chair. He stretched out his hand to support his chin without making a sound. He just flicked his nails and looked at Shen Chenyi coldly. He still looked stubborn at the moment, and his young face was full of vitality. He killed someone but showed no remorse. He is obviously engaged to Yuan Xiaozu, but he gets involved with other women when he goes out. Such a man has to suffer for Yuan Xiaozu to fight to the death for him. Sure enough, a bitch has her own troubles. In that case, this is what I think. Shen Chenyi joined my Yuan family in order to spread the branches. I think this brute force is useless. He can kill and kill in a day. In the past, he was given to Shen in the Shen family. The family has caused such a big trouble. In my opinion, it's okay not to practice martial arts, so as not to cause serious crimes to my Yuan family. One day, I will kill her on the spot. This singing girl was bought by my son for 5 taels of silver. After coming down, he is already a lowly person. Good people and bad people cannot intermarry. If Shen Chenyi likes her, there is no harm in staying with her, but she cannot stay in the house before the wedding. If the Shen family wanted to kill the singing girl, they had to borrow Lily's help. Lily was not a fool. She would not be willing to give up such a ready-made handle. What she wanted now was for Shen Chenyi and Yuan Ziozo to give birth to the Yuan family's heir. As for how these 3 people will struggle with the law in the future, Lily is not concerned. Now she has finished explaining how to deal with it. Mother Shen heard that Lily was going to destroy her son's martial arts, and her heart was as sharp as a knife, but when she heard Lily's words threats, but dared not say even a word of no. Everyone was silent. The Shen family members obviously had no choice but to acquiesce to Lily's proposal. Lily had someone drag Shen Chenyi out after being lifted up. When he heard that his martial arts was about to be abolished, Shen Chenyi first glanced at his parents. He was not afraid at all, but when he saw his parents' default attitude, he suddenly panicked. When he wanted to struggle again, several wolf-like palace guards had already lifted him up. The so-called useless martial arts in Lily's mouth is not the so-called target of Shen Chenyi's body in the play. He actually has no martial arts. It all depends on the strong strength he has trained. As long as he cuts his hand and leg tendons and re-attacks them, let Shen Chenyi lose the strength in his hands and feet from now on. Even if he wants to cause trouble in the future, it will be impossible. When hearing his son's screams, Father Shen's face was extremely ugly. When Shen Chenyi was sent back, his hands and feet were covered in blood, and his legs had no strength at all. He was half carried back by several guards. Several guards throwing him in front of Father Shen, Lily looked at his pale face without any blood, with a calm expression. Now that the wedding is only a few days away, Shen Chenyi happened to be taken back by Lord Shen to recuperate. She just hopes that Lord Shen will not indulge his son again this time. I will commit murder, otherwise others may not be as easy to talk to as me next time. Please also ask Mr. Shen to teach Mr. Ling well during this period. Forget it this time. If Mr. Ling escapes again on the day of the wedding and the emperor blames him, I am afraid Mr. Shen will bear the consequences. Sorry. Father Shen was so choked that his face looked ugly, but he had to laugh along with him. Lily was also upset when she saw the Shen family. After dealing with this matter, Shen Chenyi was already useless. As long as the Shen family was not stupid, he would think this time escape is not that easy. The Shen family left with the dying Shen Chenyi. Lily looked at the singer in front of her who looked a little scared because she had lost Shen Chenyi as her backer. His eyes became cold. Lock up this bitch first. The singing girl had suffered a loss at Lily's hands when the young Master Ho passed away, and was very afraid of her. Now when she heard her speak, she started to tremble all over. It's just that the young Marquis wanted to bring her into the palace to sing and Shen Chenyi stood up for her. Now Shen Chenyi can't protect herself and her parents are unreliable. Knowing that her daughter may ruin the marriage decreed by the emperor. After the whole family might be affected, the couple did not dare to have the slightest objection to Lily's move to lock up their daughter. In the end, Lily only offered 3 taels of silver and asked the couple to press their fingerprints and sign their death certificates. Chi sold his daughter to the Marquis, and from then on he did not care about life or death. After Shen Chenyi was retrieved, a group of Yulin troops that Lily had borrowed from the Queen Mother naturally completed their mission and returned to deliver the goods. The marriage between Shen and Yuan's family was troubled. In order to ease the pain of losing an heir to the Yuan family, When Behi entered the palace to Thankan, the queen mother complied with her request and set the marriage of Shenshinyi and Yuanziozu in the middle of next month. When the order was given, Lily signaled for her servants to pull Yuanziozu over to receive the order. There were still tears on Yuanziozu's face, as if she was very wronged by this marriage. When receiving the order, it was Lily who signaled with her eyes that the servants kicked her before she knelt down. Fortunately, the waiter who delivered the edict was a discerning person. He accepted the money that Lily had given him and returned to the palace to give his order. As soon as they left, Lily had someone deliver the edict, and the smile on his face changed instantly. Chen Langbing turned around and sat on the chair, looked at Yuanziozu and said calmly, "Kneel down. Yuanziozu has also been tortured a lot by Lily recently." As soon as I heard her voice, instinctively, her body began to tremble, and she knelt on the ground all of a sudden. Tears fell in large drops. She looked fatter these days. But her face was so pale that there was no trace of blood in her face, and her whole body was swollen due to her frequent hunger strikes and overeating. Now kneeling on the ground, she raised her face and stared at Lily, biting her lips and crying silently, not daring to make a sound. "Ziozu, haven't you long thought of marrying Shenshinyi? Now that your mother has fulfilled your wish, why are you crying?" Yuanziozu was so happy that Yuanziozu was crying. If it spread to the palace, it would be another troublesome thing. Yuanziozu didn't think about the consequences when she started crying. Fortunately, Lily was not her real aunt. Watching her cry now, she was so sad that she didn't move at all. She just stared at her with a slight frown on her face, making Yuanziozu burst into tears again. "And, why do you want Zhulang to marry into the Yuan family? How could a person with Zhulang's character be allowed to marry into the Yuan family? Can you endure such humiliation?" "I want to marry him, but I want him to be happy even more. I heard that my aunt also disabled his martial arts, right?" Yuanziozu only got the news about this matter not long ago. When she heard that Shenshinyi's limbs had been cut off, her heart twisted in pain, but she couldn't see Lily's face at that time. Since her brother's accident, Lily saw someone put her under house arrest. She was either asked to copy sutras for the dead young Hoye to transcend, or she was locked in the room and not allowed to go out. Yuanziozu had never suffered such grievances and crimes in the past. She had cried countless times in her heart these days, and now she finally came out in the name of receiving the imperial edict. She couldn't wait to say what she wanted to say to Lily: "I want to go see him and ask my aunt to take back my life. Don't let Zhulang marry into the Yuan family." Before Lily could speak, the old lady Lu of the marquis, who had been staying out of her courtyard since her grandson's death, was shaking with anger when she heard these words. "We are about to get married, and I have to have your mouth torn out? You have eaten everything inside and out, and now you are eating the food of the marquis and wearing the clothes of the marquis, and you are worrying about that boy from the Shen family. When he beat your brother to death, what happened? I have never seen you think about the Yuan family. Now that the Yuan family is dead because of that boy Shenshinyi, you are still interceding for him. Have you ever thought about the descendants of the Yuan family?" Mrs. Lu became more and more angry as she spoke. She raised her dragon head crutch in her hand and was about to hit Yuanziozu. However, before the stick could fall on Yuanziozu, she screamed like a pig and raised her arm to cover her face, crying even harder and trembling all over. "Now that you are just letting him into the family of Zhu Yuan and not killing him, you start begging for mercy. Why did your mother give birth to such a scourge like you? If you had known better, you should have been strangled when you were born. Die. Don't make me angry today. Mom, don't be angry. Let your daughter-in-law tell Ziozu. I believe Ziozu will understand." Lily looked at Lu's face turning green with anger. After comforting her, Mrs. Lu still didn't quite believe that Lily would deal with Yuanziozu, but thinking that Lily had not softened her heart a few days ago because of Yuanziozu's hunger strike and begged for mercy, now she was given face. When she heard this, she snorted. She really didn't want to talk to Yuan Ziozu anymore. If it weren't for the fact that Yuan Mansion needed someone to inherit it, Lu would really rather beat Yuan Ziozu to death at this moment. She hated it. After glaring at Yuan Ziozu for several times, he allowed his servants to help him leave the place. After Lu left, Yuan Ziozu was still covering her face and crying, "Zhulang didn't mean it. Zhulang really didn't mean it. Ziozu, if someone takes your virginity by force and finally tells you that he didn't mean it, do you think it's okay?" Lily asked Yuan Ziozu warmly. After hearing this, Yuan Ziozu trembled like chaff. He stood up and said, "I am born as Zhulang's person, and I die as Zhulang's ghost." What she said was powerful. Listening to her statement, Lily first picked up the teacup and took a sip, then put the teacup down and then said, "In that case, go back and prepare yourself to welcome Shen Chenyi into the house. The Yuan family must have an heir. I wanted to give birth to you. If you don't agree, you'll threaten me with death at every turn, and won't eat or cry, so that in the end I only had one son alive. Now my son was beaten to death by Shen Chenyi. Mother still loves you, and is willing to fulfill your wishes and let Shen Chenyi marry you and live a happy life. If you feel that Shen Chenyi is indeed wronged, Mother will agree with you." As soon as Lily said this, Yuan Ziozu, who was crying, was stunned. He lowered his hand covering his face and stared at Lily with red eyes, a look of surprise on his face, and "It's just that the Yuan family cannot be extinct. If you don't want Shen Chenyi to be in trouble, then I can only kill him to avenge my son and find a man to breed for you. If one can't be born, two will be needed. If two can't be born, just four, until you can give birth to an heir for the Yuan family." Lily did not speak eloquently to Yuan Ziozu like Lu did just now, but what she said made Yuan Ziozu, who was originally happy, feel her heart drop to the bottom of her heart. Her face was so pale that there was no trace of blood, her lips were trembling, her teeth collided up and down, making a clucking sound. Looking at Lily's smiling face, Yuan Ziozu couldn't say a word anymore. "Now tell me, what do you want to do?" When Yuan Ziozu heard Lily ask her about her choice, her tears were like broken beads. She wanted to ask Lily, had she ever considered how a woman could survive with 2 men or even 4 men like Lily said? As long as she gives birth to a child, has she ever thought about what she will do in the future? She wanted to ask Lily if she still remembered her mother, but her lips were moving at the moment, and she didn't know if it was because she was too scared, but she couldn't say a word at all. Seeing that she was silent, Lily signaled her servants to carry Yuan Ziozu down. When the stewardess next to Lily who sent Yuan Ziozu back came back, she said that Yuan Ziozu had returned to the room at this time and kept calling mother, and when she complained and cried to the long-dead Dagon, Lily just smiled and did not show any eclipse. She is not the real Ganbei. She will not be happy because of Yuan Ziozu's pain. She will not be as sad as the original owner just because Yuan Ziozu is in pain. Yuan Ziozu's cry is just a blind man lighting a lamp in vain. Not to mention that Dagan has been dead for many years. Even if Dagan is still alive and wants to intercede for her, Yuan Ziozu's idea will not be what he wants. After forgetting about Yuan Ziozu, Lily took off her hair in the evening and was about to wash up. The servant had just brought the mouthwash and Lily took the water with lemon slices into her mouth. There was a mother-in-law outside the screen. He hurriedly knelt down and replied, "Back to Madam, the eldest lady found out about the little singing maid somewhere. She escaped after dinner. She went to the woodshed to release the little hoof. When she was about to escape from the mansion, she was intercepted by the gatekeeper. After Yuan Ziozu received the imperial edict, she originally wanted to plead for Shen Chenyi but failed, but was threatened by Lily. After Yuan Ziozu returned to the house, she cried for a while and cried about the early death of Dagan and the pain of losing her mother at birth, but in the end she was not moved by Lily. She neither wanted to wrong Shen Chenyi by marrying into the Yuan family, nor did she want to marry a random man in order to give birth to an heir for the Yuan family. Therefore, after much deliberation, Yuan Ziozu decided to elope with Shen Chenyi. She had found out a few days ago when Shen Chenyi was arrested. It was a girl who saved him. Yuan Ziozu was deeply afraid that he would hate himself because of Lily's recent embarrassment to the Shen family and the destruction of Shen Chenyi's martial arts. Therefore, he knew that this singing woman had an affair with Shen Chenyi, but in order to please Shen Chenyi, Yuan Ziozu still decided to rescue this woman and run away together. She only hoped that after she saw Shen Chenyi, he would not be angry with her because of Lily's behavior for the sake of saving his woman. When she returned to the house and cried, Mrs. Gan's behavior did not move Lily, but it moved a woman who had been left behind by Mr. Gan. When he was guarding her after the meal, he deliberately let her out. However, the investigation in the mansion was strict recently, and in addition the singing girl was one of the culprits in the death of young Master Ho, so the mothers-in-law took a very close look at her. No one noticed Yuan Ziozu's escape. She wanted to save the singing girl. He ran away, but was caught soon after. The servant didn't dare to hide such a big thing. Although he knew that Lily might have taken a break at this moment, he still returned the favor. After hearing the report, Lily spit out the mouthwash and wiped her mouth with a handkerchief. Beat the people around Yuan Ziozu 10 times, sell them out, and replace her with a new group of people to watch her carefully. If she escapes, the whole family of the servants guarding her will have to be held accountable. She didn't beat Yuan Ziozu either. He didn't even have the intention to see Yuan Ziozu. He just made all the servants around Yuan Ziozu angry. One servant's actions affected a bunch of servants. At that time, everyone would supervise each other for each other's safety. The other party, and this time the servant helped Yuan Ziozu, not only was she fine, but the servant was unlucky. From now on, the servants will be cold, and no one will dare to help her. After Lily's instructions, the mother-in-law outside took the lead. After receiving the order, Yuan Ziozu was still regretting that she had not been able to escape today, but 2 batches of subordinates who had been beaten and removed had already changed around her. During this period, although Yuan Ziozu still did not give up and tried her best to escape from the Yuan family, but after the previous 2 accidents happened to the servants guarding Yuan Ziozu, but she was unscathed, many servants had also watched. It turns out that Yuan Ziozu has fallen out of favor. Seeing that Lily has recently been busy preparing people to marry Shen Chenyi, the wedding is only a few days away. In order to prevent Yuan Ziozu from being evil again, someone boldly drugged Yuan Ziozu, which made her sleep in bed almost all day long. Everyone tacitly understood that as long as Yuan Ziozu didn't die, everyone would feel relieved when she got a job after her wedding. It is not that Lily has never heard of this matter, but Yuan Ziozu has suffered her own consequences. She has the same idea. As long as Yuan Ziozu lives, she can give birth to offspring for the Yuan family. How does she survive? Lily doesn't mind any way she lives. On the day of the wedding, the Shen family carried Shen Chenyi over. His hand tendons and hamstrings were severed, and his walking was somewhat affected. If he wanted to ride a horse now, he would have trouble getting on and off the horse. Between the 2 families the playing was very lively, but the expressions between both parties were very cold. As soon as the Shen family sent Shen Chenyi to her, they all left. That night, Lily sent someone to send Shen Chenyi into the bridal chamber. In order to prevent the 2 people from playing tricks and deceiving herself, Lily sent someone to send them into the room and fed them both some food. They waited until the next morning. Lily was relieved when she received the veil after consummating the marriage. For several days, in order to make these 2 pregnant as soon as possible, a lot of things were added to their food. Although Shen Chenyi was young and strong, eating too much of these things still hurt the body. After half a month, within a short time, his face had become sunken. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 701. But Lily was not concerned about whether Shen Chenyi was thin or not. Shen Chenyi was just a tool she brought into the house in order to keep the Yuan family behind. Not to mention that as long as the person was alive, she could do whatever she wanted in the Yuan mansion, even if Shen Chenyi died. Anyway, as long as Yuan Ziozu is still alive and Shen Chenyi dies, Lily can still find another Li Shenyi and Wang Shenyi. 2 months after the two got married, there was no movement in Yuan Ziozu's belly. There was always something in Shen Chenyi's food and water. At first, he wanted to imitate Yuan Ziozu and go on a hunger strike, but this was in the Yuan family and not in the Shen mansion. Mother Shen doted on him at first, and would coax him obediently once he stopped eating, but now if he wants to lose his temper and not eat, several strong women will take him back, regardless of whether he eats or not. But the water with added medicine was still poured into him. After Shen Chenyi's hand and hamstrings were severed, although they were reconnected, his strength was not as strong as before. After struggling for a while, the wound felt like needles pricking, and even more, not to mention that the women Lily sent to serve him were quite strong. In the past, Shen Chenyi could have found a way to escape, but now Shen Chenyi couldn't use any strength at all and could only let others mess with her. In 2 months, Zhonyu and Ziozu did not become pregnant. Instead, there was news about the singer who was captured in the mansion. No one noticed it at first. It was only 2 months later that the mother-in-law realized that the singer had never been pregnant. When she had her menstrual period, she felt panicked. Recently, Lily had been anxious about Yuan Ziozu and Shen Chenyi's pregnancy, so she didn't dare to report it. Instead, she thought of a way and went out to get some medicine. He boiled a bowl of soup and gave it to the singer. The singer almost died from pain that night. In the morning, there was blood all over her body. It was obvious that the piece of meat in her belly was not saved. The mother-in-law was also afraid of losing her life. So when I saw the dying singer in the morning, I reported the matter. Before I saw Lily, I heard that Lily had gone to Yuan Ziozu's house. Yuan Ziozu had a wild night with Shen Chenyi last night. When I woke up in the morning, I found blood under my body and constant cramping pain in my abdomen. I asked a doctor to take a look. After taking a pulse, he told me that I was more than a month pregnant. Originally, it was best to abstain from sexual intercourse in the first 3 months after becoming pregnant, but because Yuan Ziozu didn't know she was pregnant before, Shen Chenyi ate something as usual last night, and as a result, the child in Yuan Ziozu's belly became pregnant. I almost didn't save it, but fortunately Yuan Ziozu was well raised by Gan Lily. Although he had been tortured a bit in recent months, the child was still saved after the doctor administered injections and medicine. Now that she is pregnant, Shen Chenyi will temporarily live in another courtyard. Lily sat at the table. When she heard the doctor say that Yuan Ziozu's unborn child could be saved, her expression softened a little. But Ziozu, young man, although you are a bit greedy when you are newly married, you should exercise some restraint when you are pregnant. As soon as Lily said this, the doctor who was packing the things shook his hands, and the contents of the medicine box almost spilled out. Shen Chenyi, whose cheeks were sunken, heard this and stared at Lily with his eyes wide open and gritted teeth. His face was filled with anger, and he was so angry that he could not speak. Yuan Ziozu was so embarrassed that she hid her face. Tears welled up involuntarily in worry and panic. The doctor was afraid of hearing the secrets of the marquis, so he packed the box. Following Mammy, the girl received the reward and thanked her and went out. Yuan Ziozu blushed with embarrassment, sobbed and said, "If my aunt hadn't drugged Julang, how could we?" Humph. I gave him the medicine, but it was also for the sake of a successor to the Yuan family. What's more, you know whether your period has come. Knowing that you have a child, don't you know how to reject him? I gave it to Shen Chenyi. Medicine, but you are not the target of the medicine. Shen Chenyi used to be physically strong. If Yuan Ziozu is not his opponent after taking the medicine, let him do it. Lily believes that, but now Shen Chenyi has no power to bind the chicken. if Yuan Ziozu is really, even if you want to reject him, you can't push him away. Tears welled up in Yuan Ziozu's eyes. Just as she was about to speak again, Lily no longer wanted to say anything more to her. Okay, okay, I don't care what you think. Anyway, now that you have a child, you should take good care of it. As for Shen Chenyi, although you beat my son to death, since you have contributed to the Yuan family now, I am not that stingy person. Since you liked the singer back then, I rewarded you, and she is just waiting for you. As soon as Lily said this, although Yuan Ziozu was very generous in the plot, and in the end she served Shen Chenyi with the singing girl, but at this moment when she was just pregnant and had finally managed to keep the pregnancy alive, Lily, immediately arranging a woman for Shen Chenyi, still made Yuan Ziozu look pale and tremble so much that she could not speak. As for Madam, I'm afraid the singing girl won't be able to serve my uncle. The mother-in-law, who was waiting for a reply outside, couldn't wait for Lily for a long time, so she had to have someone send a message to the girl next to Lily. The girl had been waiting for the opportunity to tell Lily, but because Lily was worried about the child in Yuan Ziozu's belly just now, she didn't have time to listen to the servant's reply. Only then did the little girl seize the opportunity. The singer is pregnant, and I don't know who it is. Last night only then did I find out that the baby had been miscarried. Shen Chenyi was dumbfounded. He became a father twice in one day, but at this moment, he didn't feel any joy at all. The child in the singing girl's belly came and went quickly. He naturally knew that the baby in the singing girl's belly was. Whose child is it? But before he had time to rejoice, the child died. Although Yuan Ziozu was also pregnant with the child's surname was Yuan and not Shen. The key is that the people of the Yuan family treated him like wolves and tigers. Generally speaking, letting him live in the Yuan family was like going to jail. He was forced to have this child. Shen Chenyi felt like he was just a breeding man, as if to the Yuan family, he would be of no use after having a child. Under such circumstances, it was really difficult for Shen Chenyi to like this child. He thought of the singing girl who took him in the past. Recently, he had his limbs broken. When he was in the Shen family, he tried every means to escape from the marriage. After entering the Yuan family, his life was unsatisfactory. He forgot about the girl. At this moment, he heard someone mentioning her name. Shen Chenyi felt a little guilty in her heart. One person does the work and the other takes responsibility. Why are you making things difficult for her? She had nothing to do with me who killed Yuan Pingan. Let her go. Shen Chenyi thought of the gentle girl back then. He clenched his fists and couldn't help but drink at Lily. Without saying a word, Lily signaled for everyone to hold him up. She raised her arm and slapped him on the face, causing Shen Chenyi to tilt his head to the side. She blew on her palms and coldly snorted. I want to beat you when I hear you mention my son. This is the Yuan family, not the Shen family. Why are you talking to me? There are no rules. Your mother didn't teach you well back then, and now I want to teach you well. Lily. After saying that, he winked at the two women who were holding Shen Chenyi, and the women opened their bows from left to right, beating Shen Chenyi to the point where she gritted her teeth at first, and finally there was blood flowing from the corners of her mouth. Today's Shen Chenyi is not as powerful as he was back then. Now he is being held up by a group of women, and even if he struggles, he can't move. He had no choice but to let others bully him. Remembering the days when he was dressed in fine clothes and angry with horses, and when he was in Shen Mansion, everyone called him Juyi. Then seeing how many women can bully him now, Shen Chenyi was so angry that she opened her mouth. Wow! He spat out a large mouthful of blood. Don't fight, don't fight. Are you going to beat him to death? Seeing this scene, Yuan Ziozu wanted to get out of bed anxiously. Although she was a little sad when she heard that the singer was pregnant, at this moment Shen Chenyi was beaten, which still made her heart ache. She suppressed the jealousy and sourness in her heart, and began to plead for Shen Chenyi's mercy. She thought of her unruly fiancé back then, and looked at how skinny she was now, and how angry she was after being beaten by a group of women. Shenshinyi could only vomit blood but was unable to fight back. Yuan Ziozu couldn't help but shed tears again, and "Shut up," Lily scolded her. Yuan Ziozu's girl hurriedly pressed her down on the bed and refused to let her get off. Yuan Ziozu struggled for a long time. Firstly, she almost couldn't save the child in her belly today and she didn't have enough strength. Secondly, there were too many servants. She was pressed so hard that she couldn't get up at all, and she could only tilt her head. Staring at Lily with tears in his eyes. "Don't force me to tie up your limbs, you're a worthless thing. You can't even stand a man's eyes, and you still voluntarily touch that despicable singing girl. Now that you have so much flesh and blood in your belly, you still need my help. Now you still need my help, you have the nerve to cry. Your mother really brought shame on the Yuan family when she gave birth to you." Lily's eyes met Yuan Ziozu's. Yuan Ziozu cried even more aggrievedly. She heard Lily warn her that she would do it again. When someone tied her limbs up on the bed, Yuan Ziozu now knew that Lily could do it as she said. She didn't dare to struggle anymore. She could only watch Shenshinyi being beaten until her face was red and swollen. Lily then understood. He walked away with his servants in his arms. After the group of people left, Yuan Ziozu stretched out her hand tremblingly to pull Shenshinyi. "Mr. Shen, are you okay?" "Humph." Shenshinyi's face was red and purple at this time. The feeling of being slapped but unable to fight back was not pleasant. The pain of being unable to beat others and only being bullied surrounded him. At this moment, Yuan Ziozu's flattery did not go away. Making Shenshinyi feel soft made him feel even more resentful. He reached out and pushed Yuan Ziozu away, stumbled up and ran out the door. Fortunately, he was not strong enough and did not push Yuan Ziozu down. Yuan Ziozu only swayed. Looking at the door that was slammed shut, thinking of her current life, she couldn't help but fall back on the bed and cry again. No matter how aggrieved Yuan Ziozu felt, and no matter whether she welcomed the arrival of her current child, she still raised the baby in order to have a successor for the Yuan family. Since Yuan Ziozu became pregnant, Lily has stopped letting people go. After giving Shenshinyi medicine, he was given a separate room. Apart from not being allowed to leave the hospital every day, he was allowed to do whatever he wanted, and Lily also gave him the singing girl. The singer was frightened to the point of losing her courage during the period of time she was imprisoned in the marquee. She lost her child, and although she saved her life, the feeling that she might die at any time made her a little nervous. She was frightened. The only one in the house who could protect her was Shenshinyi. In order to properly save her life, the singing girl thought about giving Shenshinyi another child, but she didn't know if it was because Shenshinyi was drugged too much by Lily during the wedding period. At that time, he and Yuan Ziozu were very intimate with each other during that time. Now that Lily no longer drugged him, he was not as excited as before when he met the singing girl. Instead, he became a little less excited. When she knew the truth, Shenshinyi wanted to cry but had no tears. He was still young and was only in his early 20s. He originally had a bright future and thought that he would be like his father and become a general who led soldiers on horseback. But now after he was deposed, such a wish was destined to not be realized. Men either pursue power, money, or fame and fortune, but now that he is in the Yuan family, even a woman can climb on top of him to vent her anger. Not to mention money, power, and fame, he couldn't even get freedom. Now he couldn't get enough energy to enjoy a woman. Shenshinyi thought about the future. "I simply feel like there is no point in living anymore." On the other hand, Yuan Ziozu didn't know any news about Shenshinyi for 10 consecutive months. She was worried and sad. She wanted to see Shenshinyi several times, but no one sent by Lily was allowed. She was put under house arrest. Once she loses her temper, without eating, Lily is no longer as pampering to her as before. After all, she now has a child in her belly. Once Yuan Ziozu didn't want to eat, Lily asked someone to teach Shenshunyi a lesson. In this way, Yuan Ziozu felt angry every time. However, since her lover was still in Lily's hands, she had to grit her teeth and endure it. It took a lot of effort to endure the whole month of October. The mid-bone flesh has finally grown. When the labor pains started, Yuan Ziozu's body was no longer as good as before after 10 months of psychological torture. If Behi hadn't had someone give her a large amount of miscarriage pills and supplements during this period, I'm afraid the baby wouldn't have survived. It can definitely be saved. But the problem is that the child was nursed too well, but Yuan Ziozu herself was too thin, so the child could not be born at all. When Po Wen asked Lily whether she wanted to protect the child as an adult, although Yuan Ziozu had never taken her own body seriously before, it's true, but she's not afraid of death. She hasn't seen Shenshunyi yet. It was only then that Yuan Ziozu began to regret not staying and flying with him. She only hoped that Lily could remember her mother's confession to Lily Gen before she died and asked to save her life. Yuan Ziozu secretly swore in her heart that as long as Lily let someone save her life, she will definitely take good care of her next pregnancy and won't torment herself like this again. Yuan Ziozu guessed that Lily should still like her. After all, Yuan Ziozu knew how much Gan Lily doted on her. Even her own mother might not be able to do this. She didn't believe that Lily would really do it for someone who didn't even meet her. The child she had seen had the heart to let her die. The reason why Lily was so rude to her before was just because she was angry that she had begged Shenshunyi. While Yuan Ziozu was still secretly cheering, Lily's voice came in from outside. Save the child. At that moment, Yuan Ziozu's heart felt like a lightning strike. She couldn't believe that Lily actually had the heart to treat her like this now. She didn't know if it was because of the stimulation. Yuan Ziozu, who had no strength at all, only felt a ball of soft flesh when she worked hard. She slid out of her body with force, and the child's loud cry started to sound. When she heard Po Wen went out to report that she had given birth to a son, Yuan Ziozu's tears finally flowed out. After the child was born, Yuan Ziozu naturally had no right to raise his son. This was what Yuan Ziozu owed to the heir of the Yuan family. The moment she received the child, Lily sent the child to the old lady. In the cleaned room, Yuan Ziozu, who had passed out, was woken up by the smell of chicken soup. Lily sat beside her bed. When she saw her waking up, she smiled at her. Ziozu is awake, right? Come and drink some chicken soup to replenish your body. Thinking of what Lily said about protecting the baby when she was giving birth, Yuan Ziozu still felt resentful in her heart. She snorted coldly and turned her face away. I don't drink, where is my son? Lily laughed, and when she saw that Yuan Ziozu was showing off her temper at this moment, she raised her eyebrows, took the chicken soup and drank it in 3 or 2 gulps. She didn't want to drink the remaining soup, so she poured it all out in one breath. Did you hear that? Madam doesn't like chicken soup, so don't prepare it in the future. Now that Ziozu has woken up, I'm going to rest. When Yuan Ziozu heard this, she was so angry that she started crying again. Lily seemed to stay here just to deliberately anger her. Seeing that her eyes were filled with tears, she led a group of girls and turned around to go out. Yuan Ziozu has had a very miserable life during this confinement. She has not seen the son she gave birth to after hard work, and no one has come to see her during the confinement. Since Lily said that she does not like chicken soup, the kitchen Li really didn't prepare anything for her, and even Shenshunyi didn't even come to see her. Yuan Ziozu always felt sad when she thought about this. During the confinement period, she couldn't keep up with her nutrition, and she cried very sadly. Once the confinement period was over, not only does she look thin and dark, as if she has aged several years out of thin air, but her eyes can't see clearly, and she can't stop crying when the wind blows. Sometimes her eyes are dry and, astringent. The sequelae left behind made Yuan Ziozu extremely painful. A few months passed in a flash, and it was now the time in the plot when Shen's mother contracted the plague. Lily Gen remembered this very clearly, because it was at this time it was discovered that Shen's mother had contracted the plague. The Shen family did not dare to tell the truth, fearing that the whole family would be imprisoned, so they secretly sent Shen's mother to another village. After Yuan Ziozu learned that her mother-in-law was infected, she had just been driven back to her parents' home by her mother-in-law because of a miscarriage. Gan Bei had just taken care of her body, but after she heard that Shen's mother was infected, regardless of the possibility of being infected, she rushed to another village to serve her. In the end, Shen's mother recovered under her careful care, but she came back infected with the plague and no one cared about her. By then, Shen Chenyi and the singing girl had already after having a child. She loved her concubine every day, but she still remembered her as a daughter-in-law who was driven back to her parents' home. Shen's mother was afraid of being infected again after she recovered. He didn't come to see her either. Only Gan Lily, who loved Yuan Ziozu the most, took care of her. Unfortunately, Gan Lily was infected by Yuan Ziozu. After Yuan Ziozu recovered from her illness, Shen's mother learned the news and quickly took her back to the Shen family. As a result, the Yuan family contracted the plague and was imprisoned by the Zhou royal family. In the end, the entire Yuan family fended for itself. Thinking of this, Bei started sending people to keep an eye on the Shen family as early as half a month ago. If there was any trouble, she would send her servants back to deliver the news. Until 2 days ago, the Shen family seemed to have something wrong with their expressions. A carriage was driven out of Shen's mansion in the middle of the morning. According to the people sent by Lily to inquire about the news, Shen's mother was seriously ill and her life in the mansion was not going well. Plus I miss my son. Therefore, he was sent out of the Shen family to recuperate in another village. Lily was sure that Shen's mother had the plague. She thought about it and asked someone to deliberately reveal the news to Shen Chenyi. Nowadays, Shen Chenyi is imprisoned in the Yuan family, and her life is like being in jail. Not only was he frustrated, but it also made him feel that life was very boring. She had recently been drinking to drown her sorrows. When she heard someone say that her mother missed her so much that she became seriously ill, and now she could not bear to stay in the sad place of the Shen family and had been moved out of the Shen family to recuperate, Shen Chenyi thought of her mother and herself this year. After many days where life was worse than death, I cried heartily and decided that I couldn't go on like this anymore. First of all, he no longer wants to live in the Yuan family. Although the Yuan family provides him with food and drink, Shen Chenyi feels that he has no dignity and dignity here. He thinks of the days when he used to do whatever he wanted, and he misses the days when he could do whatever he wanted more and more. Such a person, now everyone in the Yuan family looks down upon him. He wants to leave the Yuan family. It's just that the people of the Yuan family watched him very closely. Even when he went to the toilet, there were people following him. It was a fool's errand for him to escape by his own ability. After thinking about it, Shen Chenyi decided to use Yuan Ziozu to escape. Go out. He went to Yuan Ziozu's room. It had been more than a year since Yuan Ziozu was found to be pregnant and now she had given birth. The couple had not seen each other. For a moment, he looked at the other party with his eyes wide open and was speechless. Yuan Ziozu has lost weight. Not only has she become darker and thinner, but her face also has many vicissitudes of life and wrinkles. She did not sit properly during confinement and cried too much during these days, making her look like there are wrinkles under her eyes. She had thick eye bags and wrinkles, and she did not look like a young girl who was not yet 20 years old, but like a middle-aged woman who had gone through many vicissitudes of life. Shen Chenyi did not expect that after not seeing each other for more than a year, Yuan Ziozu would become this look shocked him at first. If he hadn't seen Yuan Ziozu's familiar facial features, he simply wouldn't have been able to recognize this person he had known since childhood. Who is here? Yuan Ziozu was crying so hard that her eyes were a little blurry, and she was always a little foggy when looking at people. In addition, not only she herself had changed, but Shen Chenyi had also changed a lot. Unlike Yuan Ziozu, who was thin, he has gained weight. He has gained a lot of weight, and his formerly handsome face has now become chubby. After more than a year of eating and drinking, he was imprisoned like a pig. His strength was exhausted and he could no longer practice riding and shooting as usual. To train yourself, and you will naturally gain weight quickly if you just eat and don't move. At this time, your body has long lost the handsome appearance before, but there is a sense of gloominess in your every move. Zhulang, is it you? Yuan Ziozu wiped her eyes and asked. Shen Chenyi felt fed up when she saw Yuan Ziozu like this. Although he was a little powerless in sex now, it was a man's nature to be lustful. No matter how bad she is, she still likes beauties. Now Yuan Ziozu is not only not beautiful, but she looks very ugly. Seeing Yuan Ziozu wiping her tears again, Shen Chenyi felt disgusted and looked away. She went straight to the point. Ziozu, I want to leave here, my mother is sick, I have to go and see her, otherwise I won't worry. Yuan Ziozu hadn't seen Shen Chenyi for more than a year. She had a lot to say to him, but she heard Shen Chenyi mention leaving Yuan Mansion. She suddenly felt a little excited. To be honest, after Lily has changed now, the servants of the Yuan family have also changed. They are no longer as respectful when talking to her, since Lily said that she does not need to replenish her body. The meals served to her were vegetarian every day. Yuan Ziozu felt that her life was worse than death. The most important thing was that Shen Chenyi was in Yuan Mansion, but after giving birth to the child. It is not easy for the two couples to meet each other. If Shen Chenyi had not taken the initiative to come today, I am afraid that the two couples would not know when they would meet again in this life. Okay. I have wanted to leave for a long time. Since Ping An's death, my aunt has become a different person. I don't want to stay in the house anymore. Juro, wherever you go, I will follow you, even to the ends of the world. I'll follow you after Yuan Ziozu said this affectionately. Shen Chenyi was originally a little dissatisfied with her appearance, but upon hearing her affectionate confession, he was a little moved, and the two hugged each other and cried for a while. After talking about the mutual pain and discomfort these days, the two finally discussed and decided to leave in the evening. The two thought they were secretive, but they didn't expect that this conversation would be returned to Lily in the afternoon. When the servants replied that it was Yuan Ziozu who was planning to escape at night, Lily sneered. Let her go. In addition to not letting her take away the valuable things, she can run away if she wants. Anyway, now that the Yuan family has a successor, it doesn't matter whether Yuan Ziozu lives or dies after receiving the order. Yetapo the children have an idea in mind. At night, Yuan Ziozu and Shen Chenyi secretly escaped from Yuan's house in a clumsy way. Things went smoothly unexpectedly. The two of them just pretended that the Yuan family didn't know about it. After escaping from the Shen family, they felt like they were breathing free air. Shen Chenyi didn't dare to go back to the Shen family at the moment. The Shen family's behavior of forcibly sending him to the Yuan family made him somewhat resentful of the Shen family. If he goes back now, without his mother who usually loves him deeply, Father Shen will definitely send him back to the Yuan family again. After finally escaping from the Yuan family, Shen Chenyi would jump into the fire pit again, so he decided to leave the city to find Shen's mother first. Mother Shen has always doted on him. When he killed the young prince of Dingui Marquis Mansion, Mother Shen could think of a way to let him escape. This time, if Mother Shen knew that he could not survive in the Yuan family, she would definitely find a way to do better. Protect him. When he escaped from the Shen family after beating the young master to death, Shen Chenyi suffered from hunger for several days, but at that time he had martial arts skills and could sneak around. If he was caught by the villagers, he could also take advantage of the chaos to escape quickly, and later hid in the house of the singing girl. She entertained her with delicious food and drinks. In fact, Shen Chenyi had not suffered much, so he always felt that the world was so big that he had his own place everywhere. He took Yuan Ziozu and waited for the weather to turn. As soon as the city gate opened, they left the city. Shen's mother was seriously ill at this time. Because she was suffering from the plague, the servants were afraid of being infected. No one dared to serve her, and they all hid far away. Mother Shen has been ill for 2 days, becoming increasingly groggy and unable to get up at all. When Shen Chenyi and Shen Chenyi left, Shen's mother thought that she would definitely die, but she didn't expect that her son would come to her side. As the plot develops, Yuan Ziozu wanted to perform well in front of Shen Chenyi and her mother-in-law, who had not been with her for a long time. She ignored the horror of the plague and personally served Shen's mother every day, eating, drinking, and eating. Yuan Ziozu's body was not necessarily strong to begin with. After giving birth to the child, her body was already severely damaged, but now she served Shen's mother without hesitation. Shen's mother was reluctant to control her son. When she had a choice, she was naturally unwilling to spread the plague to her son. Therefore, she often drove her son far away and only let Yuan Ziozu serve her. In this way, no more than 10 people would be born. In the next day, Shen's mother was mostly recovered from her illness, but Yuan Ziozu contracted the plague. Because Shen Chenyi had not been close to Shen's mother when she was ill, he was not infected. Once Shen's mother recovered from the illness, she knew how serious the plague was and was deeply afraid that she would be infected if she and Yuan Ziozu were together. So although he felt a little guilty for Yuan Ziozu, he still gritted his teeth, quickly rented a carriage, and left here with Shen Chenyi. Yuan Ziozu found out that Shen's mother and Shen Chenyi had left when she was so sick that she couldn't even get a drink of water. At first, she couldn't believe that her mother-in-law, who she served wholeheartedly, would treat her like this. She was truly devoted to Shen's mother. Even though she was so good to her since she was a child, Ganbei he never tasted the tea she personally served. During those few days when she was still a mother, she washed Mother Shen's body, fed her food and urinated on her. She had already done this. Yuan Ziozu couldn't believe that she had put down her dignity as the eldest lady of the Haofu, but Shen's mother abandoned her as soon as she recovered from her illness. I originally thought that Shen Chenyi and her son just had something to do and had to leave for a while. She sat at the door and waited for a day, but the Shen mother and son never came back. For the whole day, Yuan Ziozu was thirsty, hungry, and uncomfortable. Although she could still walk in the early stage of the disease, she was suffering from fever and weakness in her limbs. She had served Shen's mother and knew that she was infected with the plague. She remembered that when Shen's mother was sick, she had served her wholeheartedly, but now she was infected. But no one took care of him at all. Yuan Ziozu burst into tears. In times of crisis, she still thinks of Gan Lili. Whenever she is sick, Gan Lili will always gently coax her to take medicine, sing to her, and satisfy her bad temper due to illness. Only when people are in trouble. Only then did she remember how kind Lili was to her in the past. Yuan Ziozu was now desperate. She didn't want to die. She remembered that she had left a son for the Yuan family. She remembered that although Lili was not as kind to her as before, Yuan Ziozu felt that Lili was only angry with her because Mr. Ho died, but now that she had given an heir to the Yuan family, Lili's anger should have dissipated. Besides, even if Lili was angry with her again, she was already like this, so Lili wouldn't just watch her die, right? In the past, although I threatened Lili, I didn't want to live anymore. Lili would not give her food once she went on a hunger strike. But at the critical moment, Lili was still reluctant to let her die, and would still give her food and water. Yuan Ziozu felt that this time she was infected with the plague, and Lili would definitely save her. So she waited for 2 days. After confirming that Mother Shen would not come back, she staggered back to the city for 2 days. When she gritted her teeth and knocked on the door of the Yuan family, The servants of the Yuan family didn't show much joyful smiles when they saw her coming back. Yuan Ziozu knelt in front of the lobby. She was now seriously ill. Her whole body was hot and cold, her face was blue and white, and her forehead was dripping with cold sweat. Ziozu, since you left, why did you come back? When Lily knew that Yuan Ziozu was back, she had people disinfect the room with strong alcohol early. She stayed far away from Yuan Ziozu, and it was cold now. Leng stared at Yuan Ziozu. The look made Yuan Ziozu feel a chill rising from the soles of her feet, and her body couldn't help but tremble. She moved her lips. Mother, Ziozu knows she was wrong. Mother, please forgive Ziozu. Well, Ziozu will never run away again. During the few days she lived outside, she had nothing to eat or drink. Now she realizes how difficult life is. Yuan Ziozu really doesn't dare to run away. She can't get used to living without servants. She does everything by herself, including cooking and washing. She couldn't stand it at all. She wanted to assure Lily that she would never dare to run away again after recovering from her illness. She would definitely take good care of her son in the future. When her son inherits the palace, she will become an old lady and have enough food and clothing from now on. Lifetime. Are you sick? Why are you so weak to speak? Lily interrupted Yuan Ziozu and asked her. Yuan Ziozu naturally did not dare to admit it. If she dared to say that she had the plague, maybe Lily would agree to her staying. Next, people didn't dare to serve her anymore. She gritted her teeth and was about to lie, but Lily didn't give her the time to speak. Nowadays, there are rumors in Beijing that someone has the plague. Looking at you, you must have contracted it, right? The Yuan family has gone through so many twists and turns, but it can no longer withstand accidents. Now that you are sick, you should go to another village to recover first. A few women with their mouths and noses covered, wearing thick gloves and thick clothes, pulled Yuan Ziozu up. Yuan Ziozu had a look of panic on her face. She wanted to argue that she was not sick at all, but at this moment how could anyone listen to her? She was dragged out and put into a donkey cart that had been prepared. When she woke up again, she was lying in a thick pile of hay and opened her eyes. There were no servants waiting around. This was a house that a hunter in the mountains had long abandoned, waiting to be built for hunting. It was surrounded by barren mountains and wild ridges. Yuan Ziozu cried to the heavens and the earth for no response. She thought of Gan Lily in the past. For my own good, now thinking about myself being alone, I couldn't help but cry again. She stayed alone in this hut waiting to die, just like Lily Gan, who was betrayed by everyone at the end of the plot. Shen Chenyi, whom she loved with all her heart, did not appear. At first, she interceded for Shen Chenyi but was rejected by Lily, so she escaped privately with him. After taking care of his seriously ill mother, she was caught by the plague, but was left here alone. When Yuan Ziozu thought of all this, she closed her eyes unwillingly. After Shen's mother recovered from her illness, she heard her son talk about what happened to him in the Yuan family. Even if she still had hatred for her son, it was almost gone now. She felt sorry for her son and couldn't bear to send him back to the Yuan family. She was tortured by Lily, so when she was about to think of a way to hide her son, she didn't expect Lily to reveal that she had contracted the plague. This caused great shock in the capital, and the emperor would not allow it. The plague occurred during his reign, which meant that he was not benevolent and that would cause God to bring disasters. Whether it was for the sake of the emperor's reputation or for the people in the city, Shen's mother was really sick in the first place. Although the matter has not spread to the Shen family, many people know about it. The Shen family committed the crime of deceiving the emperor. In order to control the plague, even though Shen's mother repeatedly emphasized that she was cured, the Shen family and their servants were still imprisoned and sent out of the city to a separate building built for them. In the cell where the Yuan family lived, the Shen family had said several times that Shen's mother had recovered from her illness. However, when Shen's mother was ill, the Shen family did not report it, which had already made the emperor furious. Now, how can you believe what they say? In less than half a month, many members of the Shen family could no longer withstand the torture. No one in the prison sent meals to them, and the emperor had no intention of letting them live. The Shen family died one after another, just like the Yuan family in the plot. Shen Chenyi was also among the Shen family. The soldiers guarding outside heard someone shouting in the prison more than once, "I am Shen Chenyi, the uncle of the Yuan family, let me out quickly." He didn't want to go back to the Yuan family at first, but now at the critical moment of life and death, when he was really imprisoned, lost his freedom and could only wait for death, Shen Chenyi realized that even wanting to return to the Yuan family was a luxury. Lily asked the son left behind by Yuan Ziozu to be made a marquis. There was a successor to the Yuan family. She resold the singer who had a good relationship with Shen Chenyi. I heard that the singer was not a virgin and had a problem with her voice. In the end, it was resold several times, and in the end we never heard from her again. However, the reputation of the Gan family was preserved. After the death of Beihi's son, he repaid kindness with kindness and did not let Shen Chenyi pay a life for a life. She also raised his son for him and allowed his son to inherit the Haofu. This generosity aroused the admiration of the world, because Beihi was born in Gan. With such a reputation, the status of the daughter of the Gan family has naturally increased. She is no longer as despised as in the plot. On the contrary, the Gan family's daughter has become the daughter-in-law that many women in the capital want to marry home. Although Lily failed to change Gan Lily's life this time, the enemies who killed her son and the people who harmed her all did not end well. Lily fulfilled her wish for her and changed the world's attitude towards Gan Lily. The impression of home, so Lily Gambler should still be satisfied. To be continued. P.S. 3 updates in 1, a big update of 10,000 words. I'm sorry everyone, the recent updates are so unstable, I'm almost drunk.